Ready down there? Yes. Good evening, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Guam Public Utilities Commission. 3 p.m. October 28th, 2021. We have all commissioners present. First order of business is approval of the minutes of September 30th, 2020.
Motion to approve, subject to corrections.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next item is GPA. We're going to have a presentation by General Manager John Benavente on fuel acquisition plans for the year 2025. Followed by questions. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I really blessed here. I know it was a lot of my explanation. It was a complicated issue to begin with, and it's difficult, but I tried to make it as understandable as possible. And so, therefore, let me go ahead and begin. And again, this is the work plan to achieve the compliance with the consent decree, and then further, what is the projected financial impact on the ratepayers throughout the years as we achieve compliance with the consent decree, plus moving forward with the addition of renewables and all of that. Where is our energy cost going to be? Where are we going to be as a result of all the decisions that have been made by the PUC? Let me proceed. The first item is we talk about the tanks, and I know if we come to you, we need to lease 1906, 1907, blah, 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 right? And this is difficult to put together. So here's a schematic of what we are doing today. You know? What are we doing today? We are getting high sulfur fuel from tanks that we lease out at TriStar. Again, this is over 400,000 barrel capacity of high sulfur. But we also have to burn low sulfur when the winds are blowing inland. You know? So therefore, we have one low sulfur tank. The second tank, and the reason for increasing this is not all of this in particular, is because we have to take out the tank for rehabilitation. It's been 10 years. Every 7 to 10 years, you have to rehabilitate the tank, make sure that it's still sound and that you won't have leaks and all of that. We also have to prepare the tank for receiving other types of fuels. That the tank this time, 1935, has been empty now for about a year over a year, and it's to be completed by the end of this year. However, the low sulfur, when we're burning to supply the power plants, and the power plants I mean are PD8 and 9 and Tavers 1 and 2, of course, 3 and 4 is out, and then Easton is out. But this is all infrastructure. You pick it up from TriStar into a low walk location, if you will. Comes through the mountains and down to a native tie-in, right course, and then bypasses the storage tanks, the HPA storage tanks, and provides fuel to the power plants. To this is how it is today. This is what I'm saying. Today we're burning two types of fuel in the base load, high sulfur and low sulfur, and then we're burning ultra low sulfur diesel in all the other standby generators in the system. Most of those are being trucked today. The next page. So remember I said there's a fuel challenge, there's a transition to get to this point. We're going from 3 fuel to 5 types of fuel. Why 5 types of fuel? Because the additional type of fuel is that we no longer can burn anything higher than 0.2% sulfur RFO beginning January 1st, 2023. Because there was a red line that on the ambient air quality standard report by US EPA that we can extend the power plant deadlines without penalties and all of that, but you must meet that deadline. So therefore, to meet that deadline, we model all the sulfur requirements, and 0.2% sulfur meets that requirement. It is more expensive, but at least for a 1-year period, that's what we have to absorb to be able to comply and get the negotiated deal that we have to pay. The other thing is that there is ultra low sulfur diesel, what we call special. With this special fuel, it removes a lot more of the metals from the ultra low sulfur diesel, and this special is going to be used to run the nuclear power plant. This is an extremely efficient machine, but it's also delicate, extremely delicate, but it's remove a lot of metals so that they don't stick to the turbine blades, and therefore will require less maintenance and the machine will run much better. So we have to transform from the 3 to this 5, and then by January 2023, when we have to comply, we're going to be burning low sulfur fuel at campus number 2. Because by July 2022, we're going to be burning ultra low sulfur diesel at PD. Remember the conversion of PD number 8 and 9 to ultra low sulfur diesel? That has to be done by the end of July of 2022, next year. And by the way, we are on track on that. That's why we're preparing for the field. We have approved the additional tactics to make that happen. So again, we're going to go from there. So that by January 2023, this is what we're burning on the island. And already again, by January 2023, the whole environment down there is already substantially improved. Because we're just burning 0.2% instead of 2% sulfur heavy oil, and we're burning ultra low sulfur diesel, which is already multi times cleaner than any diesel fuel. And then this is the end game. We are going to be on 1 fuel for all the base load power plants and the regular power plants. And therefore, our result is that brings us economies of scale in terms of fuel. I'll show you at the end. We're going to get rid of all these tanks that we're leasing. At the end, I'll show you what is the end game. Next. So again, this is the Gantt chart. It shows you what we're doing with 1934. And again, we're in 1935. Again, it's going to be clean. At the end of the year, we go or the release, and then we're going to fuel it with a 0.2% sulfur to be the source of fuel for caverns number 1 and 2. And that will go on continue until caverns number 1 and 2 is retired. Caverns 1 and 2 price the oil this is price here. That will continue until caverns 1 and 2 is retired in October 2024. Provided that the new power plant was on the line in April 2024. Because once it's on the line, you can't shut down caverns until it burns out all the Brazilian fuel in the island. Otherwise, we're going to be trucking it off the island and causing it to the storm. So once we burn all the fuel on the island, caverns 1 and 2 will be done. Then we're going to clean the tank. Not rehabilitate it anymore. Just clean the tank and then fuel it with the ultra low sulfur diesel for the long run. The end game is that we only have really 2 tanks, 2 our GPA tanks at the end, which basically means we don't lease any more tanks beyond 2025, 2010 or 2024. So again, these are the, I'll show you where how we're going to feed PB809, which is a base load unit. No? And again, over here, listeners, is the consumption, the monthly consumption of oil that each plant, Havers 1 and 2 on our RFO is 95,000 barrels a day, 95,000 barrels a month. PB8 and 9 consumes 71,000, much more efficient than Havers 1 and 2. But when you go to ultra low sulfur diesel, which has less heating value, it's going to go up to 80,000. When the new Okudu power plant comes on the line, it will consume about 120,000 barrels a day, which is substantially less than the 160 or 170. And I will show you what that means in terms of the reduction of imported fuel to the island. So again, this is the timeline, the schedule to meet the compliance of the consent decree. This is the fuel purchase schedule. We do have a bid that came in for the ultra low sulfur diesel, and it is the premiums are less and stuff. So we will be bringing that to the PUC for your approval. I think we'll bring that to the commission in October. I'm sorry, in this October, in November, and then for your approval. Next. So how the PD power plant is ultra low sulfur diesel. It's a different fuel you cannot mix with the RFO. No? So how do we bring that to and service PB8 and 9 until during the period at beginning July, beginning no later than July of next year. This is the 1906 and 1907 tank that is up at price stock. We were leasing 1906 and we asked you to lease 1907 so we can fill it up to supply PB8 and 9. So it also goes through the mountain, through the tie-in, and instead of going through tying to this tank, because they're different field, it goes directly to 8 and 9. So this is now the backup for your the base load unit, which consumes about 80,000 barrels a day. This is like a 3-4 month supply, but one tank is going to be with the special field for Okudu, because when we begin testing Okudu, we're gonna have to take this field and go through here, and then there's going to be a separate line that goes all the way up to, actually there it is already, our engineering group, or right to Okudu. Because we cannot mix this diesel fuel with this diesel fuel, because that's why we call it special. And then we're going to burn out all this other one, and we're just going to end up with a special. To say special, there's again some metals that are less in the specification, but it's not really anything special, you know. Next. Again, here's the dock. It comes into the dock. Then again, it serves to the tank. It serves to the price stock. Same pipeline, same everything. So it really is complicated, because when you push, you have to push the fuel that's in the line into the tank before you can get the clean to the tank you want to get it. So our team had to go through this process to determine all of this to come up with this solution. Next. So what does it mean to our EF, or approximate EF? No, that's a question in terms of financial impact. So again, let's look and take 2019 production. No? Here it is. Havers 1 and 2 are the base load units, and then the non-base units are actually producing 18% plus 20% of today's production. No? Again, here's our $54 million 54,000 annual GAC solar PV. Remember, this is 2023. But in 2019, this is what's happening here, right? And when you look at that, okay, and with PEPCO coming on the line April of next year, is what I'm hearing. You know, I haven't gotten the exact schedule yet. So the stop work order, they're starting up again. looks like April 2024, we're going to get about 141 million kilowatt hours per year. So I'm starting you with 2023. Now why is 2023? Because that's when we have a full impact of the 0.2% sulfur, higher cost fuel, and ultra low sulfur diesel being burned at 88 and 9. So therefore, again, I'm explaining this. So if you look here, in 2023, and I took the opportunity of using $100 a barrel of fuel because that's kind of where the levels we are now. If it goes down to where we were normally at, then you're talking about $70 to $85 for low sulfur diesel, 60 to 70 in RFO. But the world is such today that it is, and so I use $100 a barrel. Okay, as your guideline to be as conservative as I could. So therefore, you're looking at 16.76 under the yen versus the 17.1 cents that is coming up. Okay, so that's the relative comparison. So let's go to 2024. In 2024, again, like I said, the end of 2023, what comes on the line, there'll be an additional 141 million kilowatt hours. And if we can get the NG Superior Court decision done so we can construct that plan and get it done, that would come up, and that's the 84 million. Okay? So again, if you look at that, like 2024, the cost will be about 13.6. So already you're going to begin to come down. Because why? Because your total barrels consumption of fuel now goes from, where's that number? 2.7 billion a year to about, I will show you, let's say 1.55. You can't get it next page, so I'm just not seeing it yet. But again, 13.6 in 2025, and look here. Again, Tabas 1 and 2 are still in 2024. And then the Ofudu power plant, though, for half a year, starts producing energy in 2024. Okay? So you see here, Tabas 1 and 2 and 8 and 9 production goes down from 1.2 billion to 600 million. And then the new power plant for half a year takes over production. And there your rate 1306. The following year, Ofudu will be running full blast as the base load unit. So there, the production that they were being produced by 8 and 9 and PD will now be produced by Ofudu. Look what happens to PD 8 and 9. They're just placeholders, 20 million. Look what happens to the non-base load unit from 333 million to 10 million. Basically placeholders based on emergencies as a reserve. The power plant itself will now carry the load at a very efficient ratio. So what happens then with that? And again, with the renewables that came on the line during the energy, then you're going to go down to about 11.62 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's at $100 a barrel. If you went to $85 a barrel, typical for ultra low sulfur diesel before the pandemic or so, you're going to be down to 10 cents compared to the 17 cents that you have today. It's a huge savings for the ratepayers, and as we had discussed, this will help to pay off for the plan and still provide a rate increase for the consumers when this new power plant comes on the line. Next, so what happens in 2026 and beyond? We'll be bringing to the CCU, the Integrated Resource Plan, in November at DRAP. And therefore, and let them look at it, and probably by January, we get them to approve it. We will provide the CCU the advanced copy of the draft of the IRP. The IRP identifies the next, how do we get to 50%, actually 50% renewables. And actually, it goes out 20 years. But 50%, our goal is the next 10 years. We've been before, the mandate is 2035. We're going to provide, we're targeting 2030. So that means we're going to start going out for bids for additional utility scale solar PV. And again, that can be vetted and will be vetted through the PUC and others, right? So say we added another here, as you can see, John Cruz already phase 4A, phase 4B, phase 4C. We added one set of if we added this one set of phase 4, then again, this is what you're looking at, 11 to 9.58 by 2026 for our react rate. And again, as much as between 8.8 to 10.4 with that amount with one additional phase 4 renewables. What does that do? In a nutshell, and then big, is it the summary the next page, or am I, that's the last page? Okay, so here's the summary, here, listeners. In terms of sustainable plan to achieve reliable power, clean environment, and low energy costs. And again, I like to say the cornerstone of all of this happening is the new power plant. And the reason I say that is because there are some issues coming up that there is, Senator Rizal, and I just say, is trying to say that the new power plant contract is flawed. And I'm saying that's not law or flawed, or whatever, I apologize for it. And I'm saying, no, it is not flawed. And secondly, we better have that, otherwise we're in a head, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go down, but we're in a huge problem, okay? And the federal court, under the consent decree, if you don't know that, that's we learn. I'm sorry, the solid waste is, is here to, and I am sure that's what happens. Because this is just not today that we're talking about the environment, cleaning the environment and complying with the regulations that we should have been complying with in 2013. It's already been, what, 8, 9 years. So therefore, this plan has been vetted, it's been agreed to, the EPA is in the federal court, and we're going to say, throw that out now? I don't know. Anyway, but let me summarize the real benefit to the consumer of Guam, okay? Renewable generation, 25% by 2024 or 2025. And if you look earlier, the second, Senate area, 38% by adding another 60 megawatts of renewables, okay? The annual fuel consumption of oil will drop from 2.7 million here, and that's what I was looking for here, 2.7 million barrels to 1.5 million barrels. That's 50 million gallons of oil that we don't have to import to the island anymore. And that relates to erratic fuel pricing that are not affected again anymore by erratic. So we start becoming sustainable in the energy cost. So again, that amount. Emission. We're going to go from today, 2019, or typically burning, actually emitting a total volume weight of 13,016 tons of sulfur. Okay? And what would it be when the new power plant in there, and we come to 2025 with our plan? 7 tons. So for all of those in PD and every area, of course, I think you're in Limit Chill, Mr. Chairman. You're going to get clean environment. For the past 60 years, we're burning RFO on this island. It started, of course, with the migration of our power system in the Navy. We have PD 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all burning high sulfur fuel oil. Now, we're going to get that much of sulfur emission reduction. Okay? So again, and reduce affordable costs. 11, 10, 8, more natural gas, and then we have to get that as we move along. But hopefully this opportunity to get a contract that will bring it to what we were talking about and get this thing down to 8 cents. No? So again, but it can't happen without the cornerstone. No? So again, that is it, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Really, this is the whole crux of where we're trying to do the plan. Yeah, it's gonna hurt somewhat in 2023, but it's nothing that we have not seen before. And it's not even as high as it was in 2013. No? So this is the transition and all of that, and then immediately we get the new power plant. So this is what it goes. And we start all the benefits of the ratepayers and so on. Okay. I think that's it, Mr. Chair. I'm hoping to proceed.
Thank you, John. That's a very remarkable plan you laid out here. It's quite a balance going from 3 to 5 to 3 to 1 over a span of just a little over a couple of years. Yeah. How long did it take you to figure this out?
Well, you know, I just presented, Mr. Chair. I have a lot of very talented and smart engineers behind me, and I just work with them to make it. And of course, with my experience and all of that, I'm able to work together and double check each other, because we can't just put this plan together and it's not going to work. So it's a very complicated, and of course, we thank you also for your patience, because we've been coming to you, you know, without really showing this scenario as to how, you know, this is really the plan, and everything is on track. Our close out release will be open already. We're signing the contract for the 1907 plan. Then once we clean, we're signing the contract already to bring in the 0.2% early next year, because we have to burn out the low sulfur in the other tank, right? Burn it out so they can be clean and rehabilitated. And the 0.2% will be 35 to service the system as we transition from one to the other.
As you know, I live up in Minnesota, and I've noticed a lot of vehicles and people up there lately up by the pipeline. Are they starting some preliminary work on the pipeline?
They're starting to do the picking of the line, to clean it up and everything, so that they can start removing lines and everything. You know, fortunately, there's been a slight leak today that needs to be addressed, and we're going to all that information. But you know, there's still, as you start picking those old lines, you're going to have situations like that. But yes, the work has begun, because that's a critical, one of the critical factors. It's a pipeline. Thank the historical preservation, Mr. Vermont, they work with us to get permission to begin the design, moving up. So the other thing that they have done is they have cleared the site in preparation for that thing. They plan to have a groundbreaking probably, you know, not in the end of the year, probably early next year, once they have constructed some buildings and stuff to show what it's going to be like. The key timeline here now is the financial closing. This is when they get their several $100 million to construct the plant and itself. So it's November, and most likely now it's the November, December plan. The financial lenders are doing all this, the due diligence and everything. And that's why you see why we're asking about the 41 megawatt plan and all of that. And again, I can do another presentation of that, but not tonight, please, you know, about why the issue of the 41 megawatt. And as you can see, the environment is going to be substantially clean. Nothing is not going to make an impact because it's a reserve. You know. But again, they're dotting their T's and dotting their I's and slashing their T's, you know, and to make sure. Now, you know, you start throwing monkey wrenches, and again, I'm back to what's happening today, which I hope they don't, you know, pay attention to, if you will. Any of those things could scare the lenders. And that's my concern. That's why I'm very concerned and passionate about trying to keep this thing on track, because once the financial closing is done, they give the notice to proceed to the contractor, to the EPCM, and everything now is he has to meet that deadline. Until that's done, if that financial closing keeps rolling, then the construction period could change. So that's why, again, they're already doing work to prepare the try and get ahead of this curve, because I know in certain terms, I told them November 2023, but definitely no later than April 2024, because I don't want to go back to the USCPA again.
John, refresh my memory on what our rate was in 2013.
The highest rate that we went as far, it was like 29, almost 30 cents a kilowatt hour. And that was about 19 cents LIAC for 0.1, you know. So the 17 cents LIAC that you're seeing today is really also a huge amount of recovery, right? Fuel recovery. So, but then if you don't adjust any fuel recovery, anything like that, and you just cut stay forward, based on the production and the layout that I've said, it should be around the 64 something. And so, because, you know, when you start burning, going 0.2% sulfur, which is now, you know, expensive, right? But again, we have to do that for at least like 1 year.
So the permitting for the plant, that's happening simultaneously as we're trying to secure the financial, the funds for the contract.
The permitting
Are you having any
is just a process that it goes through.
So working close with USCPA?
Yeah, they are. We are also.
Okay.
And so we constantly, of course, we're assisting, you know, in permits here, just getting the permitting stage and everything done, because you know, there are conditions that's changed of law that would impact the contract amount and all of that. You know, which no one again would be in the best because that conditions there. Again, court would draw the details of it is moving, and they won't issue the, once they get the money, they're not going to issue that unless they ensure the rate to give it, they're going to get the permit.
Yeah, John, I just want to thank you for the presentation. It's more clear than before. But anyway, going back to tablets 1 and 2, when we started to change from high sulfur to low sulfur, that's an increase in cost of fuel. And also on tablets 8 and 9, when we changed from RFO to UL. Yeah, you went from, it's a 9,000 barrel more.
Yeah.
So those kind of impacts, you know, it kind of changes the rate, increases the cost of living. But I think it is countered by the Manila fees. Once you, and I don't know how that would, you know, get it under, but I think that's how the price will go up that much.
Yeah, especially now for 2023, that 141 million is saving, I believe I estimated anywhere from $12 to $18 million for that 1 year.
Yeah, one more question on that. The Manila, the 60 megawatt hour from 94 to 141.
Yeah.
Is that 94 is for you're adding more or?
Yeah, you're correct, Minister. The 94, the annual production guarantee minimum is 141 million kilowatt hours now.
Oh, okay. I think I got it. It's 94, it's only 6
But
months.
it's only going to be on the line
It's
in
only 6
April.
months, not the whole.
Yeah, not the whole period.
Yeah.
So that's why I fixed in that number.
That's the one thing.
And again, I'm hoping they produce a lot more at 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Could you go to the next, the schedule before? Yeah. Glide path PV at 21 cents. That is more than double. Is that Dandan? Okay. So that was a lessons learned, right?
That was the scenario now of the 2013 fuel prices, where it was high, 29 cents a kilowatt hour, and what was the conventional wisdom then? It's going to go to $200 a barrel. So decisions, a lot of the decisions were made on those bases. No? That it was a reasonable decision to go instead of 29, then to 21. So again, you're correct. It's a lesson learned period. We're happy that it's only 25 megawatts. And since then, we've gone and jumped the curve to 120 megawatts at 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour. So again, it's like a, it's just year until the contract is over, and that will be over in about, let me see, that's 2015 to 2011, 1 and 6 minus 20 is 14.
14 more years to go.
And then, are we gonna buy any more? The answer is no.
And then further down to PV phase 4A60 that goes into 2025. Which one is that? Who's that?
That's gonna come before you. Everything is phase 3. Phase 4 is the new integrated resource plan that's gonna be coming before you.
So is that going to be another?
We're gonna get the CCU and the PUC to approve. And actually, phase 4, you're looking at about at least 200 megawatts. And maybe, I have to look again at the numbers, but maybe as much as 400 megawatts between now and 2030 to achieve 50% renewable. So you're only seeing, again, as you only see here, 2026. No? So I only projected it and I say, okay, phase 1. And again, I added a cushion, 12 cents, but our goal there is to loop the 115 around the island so that we reduce the transmission component cost of utility scale. So anywhere in the island you can hook into the 115 without making any major expansion. I hope with that we can reduce the 11 cents down to a cheaper amount. With 11 cents is with batteries now. 8.5, no batteries, 3 for 11 cents is with batteries, so we can take all the energy in the daytime and then set the peak or early morning. And we feed the batteries, and then the next day they charge up again. So that's the only way to, well, the only way in my thoughts that we can continue to drop and flatten the curve to 50%.
That lowers your spinning reserve.
Lowers your spinning reserve because the more batteries we have, the less we have to have on the line. This is where, again, I like to go back to the 41 megawatt. That can be started, just like a retro can be started from the control room. So when you hold less spinning reserve, you're making the machines run as efficient as possible or not putting on less efficient machines. When the batteries, if they drop and not enough to carry, the batteries carry the load and you push the button and you get the standby the other generators, including the 41 megawatt up. And you didn't lose any load. It's a whole combination of how do you, not only what is the technology, but how do you operate the technology on the day-to-day characteristics of your customer needs. That's where all that combination of benefits comes together.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Bennett? Looks like a great plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is DPA docket 2201, petition for approval of property insurance contract extension with DB Insurance Company. We have a PUC council report and proposal. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I'm going to try to talk through my mask here. We're in a little close quarters than we're used to. But boy, does time fly. The last time this contract came before the PUC was April of 2018. And on that day, the PUC had approved GPA's property insurance contract with DB Insurance Company Limited. Now, DB Insurance Company Limited is no stranger to Guam. They were known for many, many years here as Dongho. It's a Korean company, and DB Insurance Limited is the issue name. Now, what the PUC approved back in 2018 was essentially a contract for property insurance, which included boiler and machinery and terrorism coverage. And essentially, it had a 3-year initial term with 2 1-year extension periods. So that 3-year initial term, which began, I believe, November the 2nd of 2018, is going to expire on November the 1st, 2021. The Guam Power Authority essentially issued, what they're requesting here is that the PUC approve the extension, the first 1-year extension of this contract. Now, the PUC does have the jurisdiction to essentially review this because it costs about $4.3 million for each year of the initial term of that contract. And essentially this 1-year extension is going to cost about $5.7 million. And according to GPA's contract review protocol, anytime you're going to increase the cost of a contract by 20%, you got to get the PUC's approval. Hence, in the 3-year initial term, GPA racked up a cost of about 13 or so million on its initial 3-year term. 20% of that amount is about 2.6 million, which exceeds, and the 5.7 million cost extension exceeds that threshold. So you have the jurisdiction. I reviewed this number, and the first thing that jumped out at me was the fact that, all right, so it costs about 4.3 million for each of those 3 initial term years. This is now costing 5.7 million. And according to the petition, the reason, it's kind of a twofold reason. So remember that back in 2018, the world was such a different place in terms of risk. Boy, do I miss it. And certainly weren't wearing these things. But essentially, challenges in the insurance market are the cause for that increase of about 1.4 million from the initial 3-year term. And so, considering that, and considering the multitude of new threats we have globally, this pandemic emergency is just one of them. Essentially, I find that, or I concluded in my report, that this 1.4 million increase over the initial year terms was reasonable. Further, I found the contract extension to be prudent. As I state in my report, essentially, GPA has only 7 days before its property insurance contract is going to expire. This really doesn't give them a lot of time to go out and solicit a new contract for their property insurance. And as I state in the report, GPA's bond indentures specifically require them to have insurance such as the property insurance that they have here. So hence, I find it more prudent for GPA to exercise the 1-year extension of the contract instead of issuing a solicitation or trying to seek another vendor. Nonetheless, PUC decides that we all know about that 1.4 million increase. Maybe GPA, you might want to consider that, or maybe perhaps order GPA to solicit before this 1-year extension expires. So that's one option if you feel that the 1.4 million increase isn't quite as reasonable as I stated this. Now, I find the contract extension is prudent. I've already stated that, it's also necessary because, as I stated earlier, the bond indenture agreement requires GPA to have this type of insurance. So my recommendation is that the PUC approve the 1-year extension. And I also want to note that there's a little timing issue with this. I don't know if you caught it, but so GPA filed this petition on October the 11th, and they included in their petition a CCU resolution, which was to approve this this particular contract suspension. However, the next meeting, the meeting they were supposed to approve this was just last Tuesday, after they filed their petition. So I did confirm though with GPA, that the CCU did in fact approve the resolution that they attached to their October 11th petition. So subject to the, well, I've also included a proposed order granting the petition. And subject to your questions, commissioners, that is the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Anthony. Does anyone have any questions regarding this, Rowena?
Mr. Chair. John, I think I'm like the ALJ, wondering why did we not take the opportunity to put together a solicitation ahead of time? We knew it was going to expire November 2021. And just for prudence sake, why didn't we go out for it?
And we did prepare. However, when we look at all the different scenarios of the availability of the market for insurance, we looked at, okay, what may the price cost may be. So there were some discussions as to what may be the rate for this deal. So we were thinking, okay, if the rates came in within a reasonable amount, then we will work on an extension. No? So we were assured that the rate will come in at a reasonable amount. And so therefore we decided that it wasn't in our best interest, and we didn't see, and if you recall, even the past bid, one bidder.
Right.
The past bid, one bidder. No? So we didn't see any change to that, and the COVID situation, the worldwide insurance market, from what we are understanding it, London shut down, that kind of stuff, really put us all in a difficult scenario. So we did prepare, but then our decision was to, we were ensured that the number will come below this number. If not high, no higher than, lower. This number is coming in lower than what they assured us. So they had to work and place all of this insurance to different property, different insurers. And part of that reason is, again, remember, we had the Cavers exposure. We had to go to 6 million. Some of those got burned on that Cavers exposure. They had to put out a lot of money. So getting all of this, and again, I'm not the insurance person, but this is my understanding of the whole thing. So again, give you an idea of the rates, like 4.4 million in actually in 2017, 6.7 million. And this is not that. This is actually still lower than when after the Cavers explosion. Well, I mean, yes, here it is. So again, here. So again, here is the Cavers explosion, 6.6, 6.4, 6.6, then the bid came in, right? And they came in a low number. They really worked on it and came in 4.42. Of course, with the following years, our numbers that come back from them as to is the way that this one was set. So really, 2019 was 5.25, no? And 2021 is 5.252, the same. Then now here we're talking about whether we bid this again or do we extend it because we have 2 1-year option. If you look at the value of the insurance, we went from 994 to 1 million, and this is because we added a Greco. We now own the Greco, so we added it. So really, in terms of the rate change, no, from this 20 is like a 5% difference between what we were paying in 2021 to 2022. So again, this is where we are. We decided based on their what they call it, quote to us that they will not exceed this number, and then we work to bring it down. And again, so that's why we didn't go on the policy.
So you didn't have any other insurance companies' rates to compare it to? You were just looking at what you had now. And
that's all we had worked all the insurance numbers through all the years. There hasn't been anyone that really has given it. I'm just very happy that they continue to do, provide the service to us, but like, Attorney Camacho said, we have to have property insurance because it's part of the bond indenture. So that's why, again, they came in lower than the number we set, and, as they had committed to, and we're grateful to that. Again, the next decision is when we go on for the next one. And we can consider that, however, again, we can go through the same process. If the PUC wants to be a part of that decision, we could do that also at that point, bring it to you as the one we may have been committed to have as the next step, and make a decision. And I think in making the decision as early as maybe May of next year, because again, that gives us time for the process.
How long does it normally take GPA to put together a solicitation?
The solicitation is pretty much prepared. It's really almost a standard process. But then we have to go through all the processes. We get our CC approved, then we get your approval, then we go back, we get it out, then we come back. So it does take so that's why I'm saying about a 6-month period before we was having it. So about May of next year is when we have to make a decision, and I'll keep it in mind to make sure that we get in queue in this one. And certainly by the following year, and I'm hoping, of course, that the world economies, the situations improve. Because again, this is all still a flux, and we have to weigh the risk of not getting an insurance. Because again, when we put out a bid, they have to show us that they have committed, so many people are committed, and they may not get to do that right away. Here, they had a commitment that if they got this number low, they get patient, so they went placed it on. And it took to the last moment. I think the number you see today is the latest, the last number. Okay, what's it?
That's quite an increase, huh?
Yeah,
That's quite an increase.
It's a 33% increase.
yeah, if you base it on that 4.355, with the 4.3 billion in 2019, you guys have that 20% differential, right? That we allowed for before coming back. And that's where you got stuck in the 2020 and 2021, we kind of like stayed there at that 5.2 million. But because now they want an additional half a million more. So they didn't want to just like bypass all this and leave it at 5.2.
No, they can't, get the market is such, they won't.
Did they?
Sure.
Then what was the justification for the increase, for the additional increase for this year?
They had the Greco.
Just the Greco?
Well,
And it went from 900,000, 900.
40-something million?
994 million.
Commissioners, we also added the battery storage as well.
The one that-
And so obviously batteries are not low risk.
Right.
So
And no quotes or anything like that? As she was saying, we didn't ask for any quotes, and
Repairs?
nobody else can offer anything.
No, and this is an area you really don't ask for.
On the second year
Like I said,
extension.
there's no one else in the market, there's a lot that, and again, case in point, before the last bid, there's a lot that were interested and said,
Right.
who came in.
Do we, no, but for the second year extension, do you anticipate, that you're not gonna have any other bidders again? Are we cornering ourselves like TriStar?
No, we're not
And not for this particular
cornering,
insurance company?
we're not gonna corner ourselves because we're gonna discuss this before the May.
Right.
And they have to assure us, if they came back and said, we'll give it to you at $5 million, then of course, why would
Sure.
I, right?
Right.
They come back and say, I'm sorry, it's $6.9 million, then
So just point of clarification, Fred, if we approve this extension and it comes up to, it's at 5.7, is the additional 20% gonna be now based on the 5.7, or is it still based on the 4.3? Where's that flexibility gonna fall?
You know, that, I'm not sure that 20% is particularly applicable, actually. Because the insurance premium, I think, is a fixed amount, right? When they agree to the contract, it basically says for the year,
Right.
that amount sit. So this really isn't a situation where
It sounds like.
I think within the year that the insurance company could come back and say, oh, we're gonna raise it by another 10% or whatever. So probably not particularly applicable.
Is this a fixed rate? From the insurance company, is this fixed?
No, it sounds like they went from that 4.5 in 2019 to 2020. It was a 3-year contract, right? 3-year term.
That's correct.
And then so 4 point, and how did it get to 5.2? Was that listed in the contract? Or was it just because we allowed them the 20% flexibility? And so then they allowed, and it gave, and they adjusted the premium as such, right? So if, so my question is if we approve this based on 5%, for the 2nd year extension, are we allowed another 20% on top of that? Flexibility?
No, I think Commissioner's reason why we filed it just because the amount exceeds $1.5 million, so that's why, you know, we come back every year for the approval on it. Just because the
So,
amount.
okay, back to my original question then, on the 4.2 million, how did it become 5 point something on the next year? Why did it increase? Was that listed or, excuse me, already in the contract?
More inventory in it?
No, because every year it's repriced.
Oh, it's repriced every year, okay, I
Yeah.
thought it was a 3-year term and then now you're doing a 1-year extension. Okay.
So just following up, so we went from 4.355, the numbers don't quite right. So in 2020, you paid 5.5? I mean 5.252? Is that what you paid? Oh, so the amount is not fixed. So it's based on, okay.
Based on the policy.
And that came before us on the 5.2.
No, because John, he said no.
The last time it came
The first
before us was
time.
in 2019.
No,
2018.
2018, this is our time flies.
Right.
This is the first time we were, so when it went from 4.4 to 5.2, they didn't come before us,
Right.
right?
No.
Well, they said this, okay, so in 2018, when we last looked at it, it said this would, same thing here, that it would probably fluctuate from year to year, but they would
Stay with the
be
10%.
at least 4.3 million per year. That's what, at least,
At least.
4.3 million. Okay, so it looks like it was after the first year, increased the 2nd year, 3rd year was stable, well, 3rd year was stable, but
Okay, so
basically there's an increase.
Right, so my point is, on those years, on the 2nd year, when it went to 5.2, it didn't come before us.
It did not.
It did not, and that's because it falls within the 20%. If you add the 4.3 million original contract, the 5.2 is right there at that threshold.
But
So,
why would an insurance rate fluctuate from year to, I mean, if it was approved, it goes for the first 3 years.
well,
of
it
that
seems
policy.
like they're also added on additional assets for each one. So it increased. So, but,
Because the previous contracts, they did also vary, it's just a part of the industry pricing, first. That's what depends on the market and the appetite, and again, just my understanding.
I mean, I
So
agree with the,
none of the previous pricing have ever been a fixed cost for 3 years.
right. I agree that, yeah, the insurance is important. It's just, I'm trying to figure out whether or not the 20% is gonna add on
Right.
for a 2nd year extension.
I mean, they can come back.
Come back for that, okay.
I don't know. We look at this early.
Or you come back in May and start talking about it. Okay.
So for this year, it's 5.7 for this year's coverage.
That's what it's doing.
Including your Greco and the battery storage.
Right.
John, what happened, from 2020 to 21, you went, from 1.2 in total value down to 994,000. That's a big, what did you write off?
I'm not sure right now off the top of my head. I can provide that information. I think,
Because that's, when you look at all your years, you're over $1 billion. This is the 1 year that you're below $1 billion.
not sure, the Eastern was earlier than that, the Eastern was up here.
They're all over. So this is the first
So
year you
again,
went below $1 billion.
I don't have that data on my head. We'll provide that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious, you must have written off something.
That's 2013, 2014.
It's been 2022, they got to bid again, and they only get one bidder again. Is there any issue under the procurement law?
There is. Okay, so when they had that one bidder back in 2018, it was in my report back then. It has, okay, it's there's only one bidder. It's not a procurement law issue, it's the contract review protocol issue. They're supposed to do the CCU, they have to do whether or not it was prudent to go with that one bid or resolicit or take some other action. So they did that review though, back then, and they found that it was more prudent to go with that one bid. And one of the reasons, no doubt, was the year before that, I think they only had one bidder. This is a big, risky insurance type coverage here. So I posit to say it's probably one of the riskier on Guam by the nature of the industry. So in this case, we're not there yet. But let's say they go out in May for bid, and they only get one bid in. They would have to do that same, the CCU would have to do that same type of review and make those same findings prior to sending that to us. Just like they did back in 2018.
And that's required, why is that required? Is that a procurement law requirement?
No, it's a contract review protocol requirement. You can, okay, so this was a IFB, let's see here. So usually when you get one bid, you can either accept the bid under procurement law, or you could, bid is just too unreasonable. You could cancel reject the sole bid and resolicit again. And in a situation, let's say it's worst case scenario, let's say that you basically submit an IFB, nobody responds, you can sole source it. That's one of the justifications for a sole source. If there are no bidders respond. But as the former public auditor stated, sole sources should be avoided and only be used as a last resort. Thank you.
If I had my way, I would eliminate sole source.
Pedro, you got a question?
Yeah, I guess it's just gonna be extra money for the non-EF side, basically. So I like to recommend that I make a motion to approve GPA Doctor 22.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Peter seconds. All in favor, say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, GPA.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice presentation.
Yeah, thanks, John, for simplifying it in layman's terms. I actually understood it.
Next item.
Good to see you again, Tracy.
We have a presentation.
There he is.
The crisis in the
They did say it would be at least.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's why I think you're down with this, right? This required years.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of time.
No, if you're gonna need to use it, then you'll have to.
20% applies to the overall free. Year by year.
Dumbing it down.
So this thing right here, though. Oh, so it's maybe talk about, you know, there was some. Okay, that's fine. I think I'm talking about just because they're never going to increase. I agree with Beth, that needs to keep these 3 years. The next, the 3 years. I mean, yeah, I know, I agree. I wonder what they're going to do.
Some do. I think you did the right thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't questioning your analysis on that. I was talking about I'm just saying, 3-year contract. I wasn't questioning I agree with you. We analyzed 3 years.
Yeah. The thing about Guam, you either like it or you don't. I thought that there's something in between.
So far, it's been great. I haven't been with you guys in wastewater treatment.
Oh my gosh.
Now it's
Well, that's what happened with the order. This thing got to keep you like that.
Oh, she found it.
Let's go. We did the other day.
Next item is, we have a presentation by GSWA Chairman, Mr. Andrew Gale, on questions presented by the PUC. Go ahead, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to introduce myself, my name is Andrew Gale, and the Chairman of the Guam Waste Authority. We have, we're presented some questions earlier this month, which I responded to in writing. And so I want to take the opportunity to present the answers to those questions, and then also answer any additional questions you might have. My slides are nowhere near as detailed as Mr. Benavides, and I would like to thank GPA for helping me out on slight technical difficulties I have, such as I don't have the right adapter. Okay. I'd also like to introduce Herb Slike. Herb Slike is the new general manager of the Guam PUC Waste Authority, and he replaces Larry Gast. Larry again wanted to retire, and we wouldn't let him for a year, so we found Herb. So Herb is now been on board starting this month as well. We're very happy to welcome Herb. Thank you, welcome. So the questions really broke down into update on the rates. It was really based on the MFW audit that was the management audit was done. So it was a question about rates, a question about routes, a question about island collection. Do we have a general manager? And then I had a few other updates on it. Right. So the management audit of the Guam PUC Authority recommended rate adjustments to account for future obligations. The major future obligations that were identified had to do with future cell construction at Ladzone and the closure and maintenance of existing cells. There's also other reserves that are identified, such as truck reserve, truck reserves and equipment reserve, etc. Those are the major ones that are identified that were not being adequately reserved for, and thus, for the last cell that was constructed, cell 3 at Ladzone, the government had to actually go out and borrow more money. That's not an ideal situation. While you're generating revenue in a landfill, you want to reserve amounts of money for the future, for future obligations. So based on that recommendation, we, the consultants, and we agreed with them. We said the rates are insufficient based on what our current expenses are and what our reserve requirements, or what we estimate our reserve requirements to be. And so when we had discussed this option, these things, publicly and also with the governor, she asked us to delay a rate increase. She asked us to delay this rate increase, and she's committed to using funding from our PUC to help us offset the need for a rate increase. It's a temporary offset. So she's committed to a total of $6 million over 3 fiscal years. And it's $700,000
a year or $6 million?
$6 million total. $6 million in total. So it's $700,000 the remainder of fiscal year 2021, $2.3 million for fiscal year 2022, and $3 million for fiscal year 2020. So based on management's review of those numbers, this will allow us to offset, to delay any particular rate increase in that particular time period. These funds will have to be used within the ARPA funding guidelines, and we're still reviewing exactly what we do that. But there is also an impact to our revenues from the pandemic. With the tourism industry basically dropping to nothing, we saw our commercial revenues actually drop up to 20% at one point, while our collections from residents actually increased. People started staying home and going away for something. So we saw that drop in revenue. So again, we will not be presenting a rate increase anytime soon. We may be coming before this body for other things, but for a rate increase is not one of them. Now, the management is investigating options of future savings in capital and operational expenses to ensure that fund balances are sustainable and will not rely on cash infusions or frequent rate increases. So that's the commitment for Herb and his team. One of the other things that was mentioned in the audit was the observation that some of our routes weren't as optimal as they could be. And again, these were solid waste consultants. This is what they do. This is their business. And so, based on that recommendation, Herb and his team, just in the month that a few weeks he's been here, have decided that they want to follow the recommendation. And this is contrary to the letter I wrote to you, by the way. At that particular time, we were going to wait before the management team wanted to wait until we implemented IO1 collection. But after Herb took a look, he says, "No, this is something we can do. We can do this way." So I was thankful to Mr. Slike for that observation. And so Guam will be divided into 5 collection routes, i.e. a 5-day collection system, whereas opposed to a 4-day collection system today, with approximately equal number of dwellings per route. Further, these routes will be constructed so that non-served residents can be folded in. We want to account for those non-served resident non-customers if we do the island-wide collection, if that is to be implemented. The goal would be to service routes with the fewest number of trucks. It's all about optimization. So Irv and his team are preparing a timetable to draft the routes to create and test them by mid-December, the end of this year. Routes, we have to notify our customers. I always have to notify our customers if we do any changes. That's just standard customer service procedures. So the routes will be advertised and residents will be notified, targeting the same month, December, and then target implementing new routes in January 2020. The idea, again, to be more efficient, to take the recommendations of the MSW, along with Herb's experience in the routes. The next question I was asked was there an update to the island-wide collection proposal or idea that had been floated. And so, yes, the answer to that is the GSWA management, under Larry Gass previously, and Herb will take over this, has developed a plan to implement island-wide collection. So I'll just go briefly. What is island-wide collection? What am I calling it? What is it, an island-wide collection? Well, it's really a collection of household solid waste from all single-family homes, excluding the multifamily units of 5 or more. So it's basically the rules that govern GSWA for residential trash collection would apply to every single household that's out there. So right now we have about, at the bottom, sorry, jump to the bottom point. There's currently about 20,000 residential customers that GSWA serves. We estimate that we should be serving 38,000 customers. If you think about how many power meters are out there, how many water meters are out there, that's a good indication of how many customers we should be able to support. Well, these other 18,000 people are not subscribing to GSWA service. They're not paying for municipal solid waste trash. What are they doing with their trash? Well, they might be taking it to their neighbor's trash can. They might be taking it to their office and putting it in their office dumpster. They might be taking it to some other places. And it's not illegal per se, but it's just not proper. That's what we estimate is happening with other people's trash. I've talked to a couple of people that they might, between the 3 of them in a small, they might be in a small multifamily dwelling with 4 units or less. And between the 4 of them, they only need 2 trash cans. So that's what they've done. What also what is online collection? That means collection is made curbside at the public right of way, which we need you to bring your cans and your carts out to the right of way, which is what we do today. We'll standardize the collection. Everybody gets the same type of cart. We've done most of that today. And then collection would be required of all households, right? So this is not something that's new. We didn't invent this. This is actually common practice in most jurisdictions. And that was one of the findings of the audit. They said, look, they had to struggle to find a jurisdiction that did not require households to pay for municipal solid waste. So what do we think the benefits would be? Well, we think the benefits would be single-family residents. All single-family residents will now have curbside garbage collection. They don't have to worry about where they take their garbage. We also believe that there will be a benefit to illegal dumping. And that is a scourge that has plagued our island for years, and people have tried to come up with solutions for it and have not. Community cleanups are great. My company does community cleanups, going down to Tangeesan and clean that place up, and then you can go down a month later and you've got to clean it up. It's just, for some reason, and I don't understand, and you can talk about changing mindsets and public education and all that, but this is something that we think is something tangible that can be done, I'm not going to say it's going to solve illegal dumping, but I think it can go a long way towards helping resolve, being part of the solution. Again, more aesthetically pleasing views of the island if you're not having illegal dumping. And again, we think there are about 20,000 residential customers. We would expand that to 38,000. So, what are our next steps to implement island-wide collection? Well, we're working with the governor's policy team to draft the legislation that would require collection. The governor's firmly behind us. I've gotten support from other politicians. The Senator Sabina Perez Perez, who is the oversight chair of Guam Solid Waste Authority, she has also expressed her support for this concept. So now the devil's in the details. Right? So we are discussing options with members of the CCU and among other utilities, my friend Miguel back here, to determine, what's the best way to implement this? How do we go about this? What do other jurisdictions do? What would work here best in Guam? There's lots of ideas, and members of the CCU have lots of different thoughts about how to do it and what's the best way to do it. That's not been finalized yet. We want to make sure that we have good consensus among all of the utilities and among the CCU members before that's been put forward. But then it will appear in the form of legislation introduced by the governor to the legislation. Things like determining the billing mechanism and enforcement options will also have to be done. So we need to understand how are we going to build this, which way do we build this. There was some discussion about collaborating, combining your utility bills, putting GSWA on another utility bill, collaborating among those utilities also to ensure that when people sign up for a particular utility, they also get signed up for their waste collection. So these are thoughts that are going around. Again, I don't want to commit to anything solid yet, but these are the things that we've been discussing at the policy level with the governor's team. And then the enforcement options. What happens if someone doesn't pay their trash bill? Well, we're not going to turn off their water because we get mad at me, so we can't do that. Right? So we're not going to shut off their power because it's different things. Plus, they're governed by, and as everybody here knows, they're governed by covenants that have their own rules and the way their revenues fall and gets paid back. So some of the enforcement options that were being thought of would be garnishment of tax refunds or lien on property tax. Those are the things that we're talking about, working with the Department of Revenue and Taxation to ensure that resident pays for their trash. With this big old picture. We'll stop. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm busy with Andrew.
So that's the concept. Those are the next steps. Again, commissioners, I'm drawing broad strokes. These are very broad strokes. The depth and the details. We will definitely have to go back to you. But I want to keep you posted on this. So what are the GSWA impacts going to be? Well, we're really going to need capital investment. We can't just do this on our own. So the governor has committed to finding us the funding to do this. There's no way GSWA can do it within our own particular, even with the ARPA funding. I mean, that's not designated for this. So we need capital investment. Why? We would need additional trucks to handle. Basically, we're doubling our workload, and we need additional parts. Right? So those parts are, we have a plan. It's several $1 billion. It's nowhere near as expensive as a power plant, but it's not inexpensive. We need to expand staffing to handle additional customers, both at the collection side, customer service side, possibly in the middle management side, the accounting side. But we do estimate that economies of scale with the additional customer base will help offset the requirement to adjust rates. So if we're collecting the same amount of trash, but now our trucks we're making more revenue per customer, per employee, making more revenue per truck, as we implemented these other customers, we introduce these other customers into the revenue stream. We think that can help offset the operational and future funding requirements. Right, so we have to. So there's models, or financial models that are being worked on, being presented, being worked on by Irving and his team. And then again, there would be a potential for the increase in office space. We are located in the DPW compound next to their main location. That's the back of that is where Guam Solid Waste Authority has its headquarters. We also have the Harmon Transfer Station and the hazardous material, household hazardous waste collection. Okay. So that's the update on that collection. General manager, our new general manager is Urban Slight. Over 35 years experience in the solid waste industry. I think I shortened you a few years, but broad experience includes landfill construction, landfill operations, opening and closures, which is really applicable for what we're doing right now. As we're opening up a new landfill, and we're working on the closure of completion of the closure of Florida. Collection side, so when we say collections, that's actually going out and collecting the solid waste from the houses. And then recycling. Recycling is a tricky business today. The market is not there. It's really, do we have an appetite as a community, as an island? What is our appetite for recycling? And, you know, Dr. Shelton up at the University of Guam, which is, she's something.
Sustainability.
Yeah, sustainability. It's all about the sustainability and all of that. So they're introducing things such as taking the plastic bottles and making stuff from them. The steam fusions of it. So those are all different things that Herb has experienced and that can help us decide what we want to do as a community. And then some other updates. So we are looking to expand our fleet. Not expand our fleet, but to replace certain trucks in our fleet. So we are planning to procure new trucks to replace older ones that are causing maintenance issues. These include 3 rear-loading 25 cubic yard diesel trucks and 1 8 cubic yard diesel truck. Herb wants to add the position of a mechanic. This will help us with the day-to-day minor repairs that don't have to go to a large repair shop. So to help us keep operation and help keep and also implement a vigorous preventive maintenance program. And then the long-term outlook would be to create less downtime and higher resale value for retired trucks. Some of these trucks we're just using too long, so they need to be maintained. They need to be cycled out of service. So again, this will as this procurement will exceed our threshold. Remind what the threshold is again? It's for us
750.
750. So yeah, we're probably right around that. So we'll need to come forward after we go through this procurement process. And Fred, you're gonna have to help us out a little bit.
Sure.
We're all new at this.
No problem.
Appreciate that. And how we would update the PUC and get approvals for it. And then lastly, my last thing is we just received our assessment. Guam Solid Waste Authority received our assessment. And one thing I noticed is you took all the utilities and divided it equally. We would recommend, or we would ask that you don't do that. Guam Solid Waste Authority is revenue of less than $20 million a year. That amount of an assessment to us is a much higher percentage of our revenue than any of the other industries, whether it's GWA, GPA, the telecom industry. I don't mix the telecom industry. So. And we haven't really been here that much. I don't anticipate us spending as much time here as some of the other utilities. We will have to come here, obviously. We are regulated, but I would just appreciate your consideration for the next. If it's already the cat's out of the bag, and we understand, we'll have to go with that. But I would appreciate your consideration for thinking about how we would assess GSWA in comparison to the other utilities. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions for the Herb or myself, I'm happy to take them.
I think we can take a look at that in the future. In past years, Andrew, many years, we even forgave the assessment of you guys because nothing was going on, or we cut it in half. We've done multiple things with GSWA over the years, so we'll take a look at that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's a good point. Anybody have any questions at all?
Just curious on the rear loading or the equipment. Is there any future looking into if available in the electric versions of?
Actually, the 8 cubic yard.
Right.
We've got some pretty competitive pricing with a truck and a charger for an 8 cubic yard electric vehicle.
Electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the procurement or the bid that we have to go out would ask for that.
Right. So you are looking at some other vehicles.
Funny, Herb and I had lunch together the other day, and he was seriously talking about going to an electric fleet and different options of that. So it is definitely in Herb's
Part of the whole sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, we would look at that and consider that heavily in the island-wide program.
Also, the other big thing about electric trucks is, as Herb was telling me, was the maintenance issue.
Yeah, the mechanic department might be might not need them. No engines.
Yeah, we might borrow one of Andrew's electrical technicians, but yeah, it's a different. The electric trucks have a 12-year cycle life,
Yeah.
and most diesels are around pushing 7. So they are very durable. And the other nice thing about maintenance on them, they're just components.
Right.
So remember that you pull it out, replace it.
Right. And then the second question I have is, going back to, I mean, the collection times and the five times now a week is, currently, I think it's, you get trashes one every week and then you have another recycling then every 2 weeks? Is that
So
what
it's,
it is?
actually, the recycling is twice a month.
It's twice a month, okay, so 15th and 30th. Where does that go? Does that just go, does it just go back to the dump anyways? It says we don't have any.
So currently what happens is, Mr. Rubbishman owns has the contract with us to do the sorting of all the recycling. So all the recycling gets delivered to Mr. Rubbishman at the Colorado transfer station in Harmony. And it's sorted.
Right.
And we were sorting and separating out plastics, cardboard, like that. Pretty much recently, even the bottles with no source, we can either send it, we were spending money to ship them off island, and now nobody will take that. So now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're just dumping all of the plastic back into the landfill. I think the only thing of value that they are keeping is cardboard.
And even at that, it's like, you're still, when you're sorting, it's like maybe that whole bin, you can take 10% on whatever is it, 10% is you.
Yeah, we're
recyclable.
seeing what do they call a contamination rate of those recycle bins that is higher than it should be. But here's the issue, Peter, and I'll share with you this. We're kind of uncomfortable stopping that. Right? We're uncomfortable saying, look, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna start. We're gonna stop collecting your recyclables because we don't want to undo what we've done necessarily.
Right.
So, but it is something that we'll have to think hard of. Right? Again, and I was mentioning it earlier. We have to decide as a community what we want to do if we want to expend resources. So I've been talking with Senator Parrish' office, and we're talking about, look, we have a very expensive recycling program that's going on. We've dedicated departments to it. We've dedicated manpower to it. We're collection. We're paying Mr. Orfan to sort it. So do we as a community want to continue doing that? And if we do, then please give me some subsidies from the recycling fund that you have that has a lot of money in there. And I understand that it's meant to pick up the abandoned vehicles and stuff like that. But look, we have probably one of the most visible recycling programs on the island. We also have Peggy Denny on our board, so there's no issue with this.
One of the things I did in Florida, the company wanted, the company wanted to recycle C&D material, construction demolition. And we took PVC piping and the market was great for one time, but then around 2009, it took a nosedive. And what I did with the plastic that we had separated, chunked up to the specifications, we used it in the landfill gas collection system. And that could be an opportunity for Guam's plastic. If the landfill needed a layer to collect landfill gas, we could use that plastic as that medium and at least get some beneficial use out of it instead of just
Along that line on the recycling, I just learned that Pompeii, they pay either 5 cents a bottle or a can, and they said within a month or two, the island was cleaned up. Because people were turning in and people were bragging they got as much as $1,000.
So you create a bounty on it.
Yes.
You create a bounty and then.
Yeah.
So then it helps clean up the island, then you still have to figure, okay, now what do you do with those bottles?
Right, but the point is, it's the litter. It helps beautify the island, so perhaps you might want to look into what, I don't know where the money is coming from, I don't know how long the program is, but.
So I appreciate that, Commissioner Brooks, but our number one priority with Guam Solid Waste Authority, and the reason I know this is because we're still in court. We're still, technically the receivership hasn't ended.
Yes.
All right, so we're still under a consent, regardless of the receivership ends, we'll still be under consent decree. And so our number one priority is municipal solid waste. A regulated landfill with a collection system. that meets all of the EPA guidelines for our community, and that's what we want, right? We were considered a essential service because you have to take care of it, you have to dispose of municipal solid waste properly. So our number one priority is that, and that's where our resources are going to go. As far as doing bounties on plastic cans, it's something that we'll have to get a second priority to our mission priorities.
Going back though to your number 8, I find it hard to believe because that was one of the problems when I read the audit report. I even remember having a conversation with Larry. You mean you barely, it's just barely over 50% of the customers that are, that are paying for solid waste. This 18,000 number seems to me hard to grasp. So have you had, where are those 18,000 customers, I guess is my question.
Well, that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
So
it's hard for me to fathom that barely half of the population is
we have to take out everybody who's in a condominium or apartment building that's 5 units or more. Just remove those residents, and that's X number of thousand. I forget what the number is. But we came up with 18,000 based on the fact that I think there's about 48,000 or 49,000 power meters out there, and there's maybe, and there might be depends on how many meters there are there. Water meters, I'm not sure.
42,000.
There's 42,000 water meters. So we figured some of those big apartment buildings might have one water meter for the whole shooting match. So we took that 42,000 up. I think that's right. We got it from the work with GWA. Trying to develop an estimate. And then there are people out there. I've talked to a particular CCU commissioner who described a situation where there's multiple homes together and they don't need another garbage can, so they don't pay for one. So they're sharing. I think that's what's happening out there. People are sharing, they're not doing it. Our transfer stations are busy. People are taking their stuff to transfer stations. So for some reason, they'd rather pay $7.50 for a truckload than $30 a month for 4 times a week. We'll come to their house 4 times a week, pick up your trash. So they'll
4 times a month.
4 times a month. Sorry, yeah. 4 times a month.
Part of the work that we have to do to establish the collection routes is actually to a household count. So we're going to get better numbers when we establish these routes with the mindset of, what we're going to do right now and then island-wide collection. So we'll actually get some of that data in the next few months.
As you're going down the roads, which ones you're not collecting from?
Right.
The mayors can probably help out with that.
Exactly.
The other thing, I know Deloitte would approve, going back to what happened earlier when we had to build the new landfill cell. There's 2 things that Deloitte is accruing on your financial. Well, I'm not sure if it's on your financial or the government-wide financial. Is a percentage for the reserve. Okay, it's a liability that is accruing every year because I think at some point even Danton will have to be closed. Like 40 years from now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so the liability is there, but not the cash.
Which is why what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So roughly, we take in roughly $18 million, $19 million in revenue a year. Our operational expenses are about $13 million. Those are rough numbers. That other $5 million is right now is used for debt service and debt service for Lazon, cell 3, and for the ORDOT dump. The court ordered set aside of $2 million going into a fund to pay for the ORDOT cap closure for the next 30 years. So we wanted to put that in. And then the remainder is what we have to put in reserves. And so it's not enough. That remainder is not enough to fund reserves for future land sales. Cell 3 cost GT actually it was $30 million. Now when the receiver was in charge and they originally built the cells at Latin, it wasn't that expensive. So I I can't fault them completely, because construction costs came up and everything came up, but there wasn't enough being held in reserves to pay for that, which it should have been done. While you're generating revenue, while your landfill is generating revenue, you should be setting aside, your rate should be sufficient, but you're setting aside enough. And this is what it's the audit fund, you're not setting aside sufficient rates, based on your existing costs, based on your existing operations, to fund that future obligation. So you're right, we need to be doing it. So that's why we went to the governor and said, look, we gotta be doing this. He goes, no, I don't want you to raise rates right now. We're in a pandemic, we got some funds, let's delay this. We'll keep you whole. I said, well, we need to be able to fund our reserves. And we can do that, but we can't do automatic collection with that same set of money. We need to set this up.
And then, so where are you in the legislation to have automatic collection?
So I just looked at a draft from the governor's policy team. That's not ready. She doesn't want me, they don't want me to accept anything. We're still working on some of the details again, working with UDL and other utilities, working with CCU to see what kind of collaboration can be done and is agreeable. Also with Revitas, what is agreeable, what can everybody live with? Again, with the governor's, following the governor's thoughts. And I tell you, a lot of people are agreeing with that. I think we ought to be doing it too. I mean, so I'm behind it. So.
Yeah, because I think that would greatly expand your customer base and bring in more money. Of course, there's not, like you said, the added cost, but at least.
Right, we think the economies of scale will help us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe it's a question out of the briefing, but what's the size of the Department of Defense? As far as that, what standards are they?
So it's interesting you ask that. Up until the end of this fiscal year, we had charged NAVFAC.
Right.
We had charged NAVFAC a particular tipping fee, just for their Ladzon, just for them to take the refuse over to Ladzon. And I'm sorry, I forget what the exact number was.
No,
but what they decided to do going forward, so beginning this fiscal year, the U.S. federal fiscal year, said, look, we're not going to go directly to GSWA anymore. We're gonna enter a contract with a commercial hauler, and then the commercial hauler will collect all our refuse and then just take it to your landfill.
Yeah.
So we have the information. I can get you the information on what amount of the NAVFAC that we build, but going forward, it's just going to be not combined with the commercial hauler.
Yeah, just to let you know, I used to run Anderson Air Force Base landfill collection of groceries and landfills. So I'm kind of interested.
Yes, it's in our. It's in our.
To you guys.
Yeah. We have a.
That's what I think. Then they do. When the fleet comes, when they have an exercise of 5,000 people, it activates the landfill.
They are one of our larger customers. But,
oh yeah.
But right now, our total commercial waste takes up about. We have monthly operational reports that we can share with you. They're public information.
So that we can really adjust with their. What I'm saying is everybody pays a fair share.
So are you able to sort your customers like hotels or what are your broader categories of trash?
So we have residential. So we have residential customers and we have commercial customers. And our commercial customers are the other commercial haulers, like Mr. Rubbershman, the Lago Sanitation, Pacific Places.
We pick up from the hotels.
And they pay by the ton.
We charge them. So we don't have any of those commercial customers. We have like 5 or 6, whoever the commercial haulers are, who are licensed. You have to get EPA licensed to be able to do that type of collection. So we don't, beyond that, we don't know how much they collect from their specific customers.
So they just pay a tonnage fee for the landfill.
Right. So what we do is we'll charge Mr. Rubbershman, Lago Sanitation, whatever. They come to the land to the hauler on the transfer station. What they have to do is they have to bring their trash to Harmon. You know, they weigh the scale before they get on. Right. Then they dig up their trash.
So it sounds like when the fleets come in or the exercises, they pay their fair share because they're by the ton. Right. So
we charge. We charge NAVFAC the exact same rate we charge commercial haulers.
Right. Good point.
Maybe we have to look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe this way another generating revenue.
What about certain, are there prohibited stuff from going into the landfill? What do you do with that prohibited stuff?
The household hazardous waste gets picked up by South Pacific Environmental, SPE.
And then what?
And then, like any of the commercial entities that generate larger quantities, they would also, I think, still contract with the same SPE.
But where does the hazardous waste end up going?
It goes off island.
Oh,
Yeah. It doesn't get disposed of it.
do you pay for it to go up on it?
Yes.
Well, but we don't. Yeah, GSA really doesn't. SPE or whoever's
Oh,
depositing
okay.
it with.
Oh, okay.
No, but as the transfer stations that, or those little, like the one in Harmon, that's not a transfer station, it's called transfer station.
Yeah, that's the transfer station. It's also does households.
So households can come in and like drop off my ups, my bad ups, or my computer, or my appliances, right? And that's free for the residents,
So it's supposed to be free for customers.
for customers.
However, we don't.
Oh, for solid waste customers.
It's supposed to be one of those 20,000.
Right, okay.
Right, but
You don't know.
we don't enforce it. We'll let people do it. And now that is an expense
Right.
to Guam Solar's Authority.
Sure.
We have to pay for the proper disposal of that.
Right.
Again, it's one of those things you weigh.
Right.
At least
As a
we're
commu-
turning it
as a
in.
community,
Yeah, you want to get rid of it.
You're right, right. You don't want it to end up there.
You don't want it to
So, yeah, go ahead, bring it.
You don't want it going into the water.
Right, so we have to decide,
Yeah.
as a community, that we are going to collect that, that we are going to offer a place for people to take those.
Right.
This was a very interesting presentation. It's something I think we need, and it's like a tutorial kind of overall process. But one of the things that seemed to be most interesting thing that you mentioned is the enforcement. And you mentioned that it's hard for you to find any jurisdiction around the country that doesn't have mandatory waste disposal and waste collection fees. I would think that you could look to those jurisdictions and see how they do the enforcement.
We know how to do it.
How do they-
They put it on their property taxes. Nobody wants to do it here.
Property taxes are so low.
They are.
Yeah,
We
nobody.
go in there and say jurisdiction after jurisdiction after jurisdiction, puts it on property taxes. No politician I talk to is interested in doing something like that.
Cash board, land.
The interesting thing about putting it on property taxes, now you're making the owner of the property responsible, not the renter, not the transient person who might be there and then not, it's the owner of the property who's responsible. However, they decide they're gonna put that into the rent or whatever. But the policy people I'm talking to are looking at alternative ways.
There has to be some, you can't cut them off. I mean, that's always the way.
And we always thought, look, if someone doesn't pay, it's not about, today, what we do is, if you don't pay your DSW bill to us, we'll go and collect your can. We think that an island-wide collection, that won't happen. You don't pay your bill, we'll still collect your trash. You still get your can. You get the benefits of that, we want to allow away. We'll have to go after that money some other way.
Because the customers that don't want to pay, don't want to be customers.
Right.
They don't mind if they can.
That's right. That's right.
Just an issue I have on population per camp. You know, some households, like one person, two people, some dead people, some don't, not dead people trash, but they don't have a camp. So, you know, you gotta look at the balance here and the fairness of this, because this is one of the most complicated things.
Yeah, you're right.
I have a problem with, but in the military, it's a budget. It's just what do. No matter whether one person's trash or 10 people's trash.
Now, I will tell you one thing though, the governor is very interested, and her policy team are very interested in a lifeline program. So for those particular households that qualify, just like there are lifeline programs in some kind of industries, lifeline programs in other industries, those programs that qualify will get some form of subsidy. So I know that they are discussing that, that's part of it. So. But we still have to dispose of that trash, there are expenses. Well, thank you for the trash talk. How long you been going that one down? Hey, I've been waiting. All right, thank you very much, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, GPA, for allowing us to use you.
Well, I didn't know how to do all of it, but surprisingly, well, in my, because I never worked with the board, they all come up with it, so they have comments and how, this is Harvard and so my recycle gets full every time. And especially at Christmas time, there's a holiday, so it gets really full. Well, see, the military is different. You can just order. And DOD budget is so big, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket.
They're printing money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't get their stuff.
Looking for a ball.
Yeah, so. I'm gonna be off.
Yeah. Well, I'm so good. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not recycling, but we like, so, now that I know it, I guess it doesn't matter.
See you later. Thank you.
So that's a good question. We probably already have at least 3 or 4 other matters. There's not going to be a stipulation.
Hey, Rick, tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll be back on. And I was thinking already. But now I'm not.
200 pages.
We all set? We all set, Miguel? Next item on the agenda is GWA docket 2201, petition to approve contract amendment number 3 with Brown and Caldwell to complete the interim water resource master plan update. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. This one yours, Fred?
Joe Fitz.
Joe Fitz, sorry, Joe Fitz. Yeah, what's up there?
You go to the restroom?
You okay?
Recuse yourself?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Joe Fitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this matter concerns UWA's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract amendment number 3, task order number 8 with contractor Brown and Caldwell, which contract is intended to complete GWA's Water Resource Master Plan update. In its petition, GWA requests that the PUC authorize amendment number 3 to its June 17, 2019 owner-engineer contract with Brown and Caldwell. And this is for project management and construction management services. Amendment number 3 would add task order number 8 to the engineer's scope of work, which specifically tasks the engineer with completing the update to the Water Resource Master Plan, which was published back in 2018. Under this contract, GWA intends on completing the Water Resource Master Plan update, which will provide a review of GWA's progress on system recommendations and its capital improvement projects. They also anticipate that certain work may be required in order to complete this master plan update, particularly tasks required by a forthcoming US EPA consent decree. GWA maintains that the cost for task order number 8 will be at $328,946 with additional 10% contingency of about $32,895, which would subsequently increase the current Brown and Caldwell contract by $361,841. And they maintain that that this particular task order would create a new contract amount of about $2.3 million. And so they submit that to date, 60% of the total contract amount has been funded by bond money, and that 40% of the contract has been funded by US EPA grants. And so they maintain that since the amount of the contract funded by non-US EPA grant funds exceeds the protocol amount of $1 million, GWA is now petitioning the PUC for approval of the amendment number 3. Turning to the contract, this contract provides GWA with professional construction management and utility consulting services for various types of water and wastewater utility projects and utility management activities. In addition to consulting engineering services on municipal planning, utility management analysis, and regulatory compliance. The task orders to this contract have included, for instance, work on GWA's consulting engineers report, project management for GWA's Route 1 and Route 4 sewer rehabilitation. It's also included a cost of service study, as well as technical assistance with GWA's water meters. Turning specifically to task order number 8, Brown and Caldwell will be asked to provide a general update to the Water Resource Master Plan. This will include a summary of the financial planning work that it has recently completed, including the 2020 Consulting Engineering Report, as well as the PUC analytical studies that were submitted to the PUC in aid of its rate petition. Also included in the scope of work is a comprehensive update of GWA's water system hydraulic model, which was last analyzed back in 2016. And they've also included an optional task which incorporates the engineer's review of a potential consent decree, requiring the engineer to comment on the consent decree's impact on GWA's master plan projects and schedule. And so GWA has submitted that the budget for this particular component of the contract is comprised of the following: about $26,000 for the task management, $45,000 for updates to GWA's capital improvement projects, about $126,000 for the water system update, which will include an update on an examination of GWA's water distribution, supply, and storage systems, booster pump evaluations, water loss control, recommendations on GWA's fire hydrants, and updating GWA's project sheets. The budget will also include about $44,000 for a wastewater system update, which will look at gravity piping evaluations, wastewater treatment evaluations, solids management, and updating GWA's project sheets with respect to its wastewater projects. GWA submits that the task order number 8 will be paid for by GWA's bond money, as well as some internal funding that has been earmarked for its capital improvement projects, as well as other appropriate sources of funding. As indicated in the CCU resolution that GWA provided in support of its petition, they indicate that task order number 8 is supposed to assist with GWA's continuing commitment to improve GWA's operations, effectively manage the CIP, and improve GWA's customer service. At this juncture, we believe that GWA is in the middle of its efforts in improving its quality of service as well as enhancing its water and wastewater infrastructure. And so GWA's engineering construction services contract plays a vital role in GWA's successful and timely completion of its construction projects. And so based on this record, Mr. Chair, I recommended that the PUC authorize the amount of $328,946 for amendment number 3 to the June 17, 2019 contract. I did not, however, recommend any additional contingencies since all PUC approved contracts are already subject to the 20% contingency contained in the contract review plan.
Thanks, Joe. McKellen, any comments on this particular project?
No comments, just to say that we appreciate the ALJ's handling of this on a quick time frame, along with the other petition that was submitted. As we're in transition with attorneys, the petitions were filed as quickly as we could, but this one, not so much as the next one, are critical in time frame because there are some, we're asking the contractors to hold pricing, and so their expedient processing by the ALJ is appreciated.
Thanks. Any questions?
My question is a little bit more off topic, because and more about the future rate increases. As I recall, back last year, when we had that presentation at what is your place called? Fadia, yes, thank you. I remember there was about 6 or 8 different studies that you were going to do, and my first question was, God, we're going to get all of that done, and I guess it's all supposed to be eventually presented to us. So where are you on some of those studies?
So all of those studies, which there are 7 analytical studies that were a requirement of the stipulation and rate order issued in February of 2020 on our initial 5-year rate plan filing. Those studies were due on March 31st of this year, and we completed the 7 studies on schedule and did submit them to PUC through the ALJ. So those studies have been submitted. They are part of the comprehensive review and update, which is currently before the ALJ. I will qualify that by saying 7 analytical studies. One of them included the cost of service analysis. The cost of service analysis, the details of that required the input from all the other 7. So we submitted a draft on March 31st, and for the cost of service only, all the other ones were final, and then with those final numbers, the cost of service study was submitted a few weeks later, I believe, but all of it was included in the May 1st filing of the comprehensive review and update, which was on target with what was put into the stipulation and rate order from February of 2020. So all of it is done.
But you said it was submitted to PUC?
Yes.
So I haven't seen that.
I could forward you a copy, Commissioner Brooks.
Okay. But has it been forwarded to everybody else?
Not yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
so,
It's part of the rate case that,
It's coming before us.
oh, okay, I don't wanna get ahead of myself, I just wanted an update.
So, just to clarify, all those studies were included. One of the cost of service study was done under the Brown and Caldwell contract that is the subject of this petition. The task order specifically that we're asking approval for, which puts us over the $1 million mark for the contract review protocol for non-grant funds. That is, in the master plan, we indicated, in the 2018 master plan, we indicated that we would do 3-year interim updates and then a 5-year reissuance of the master plan or comprehensive update. So this is the 3-year update that we're talking about. And so from 2018 to 2021, we're right on track with getting this interim update done, subject of course to your approval of this petition.
So, with the work that you're doing with this contractor, because the scope is to expand and do 15 more, so where are you in your lost revenue? Because that's always been a high number. So have you seen, from the ones that they've already done, have you seen a slight reduction in the lost revenue? In other words, are you accounting for more revenue? More water, excuse me, more water.
Sorry, that particular contract that you're referring to is the subject of the next petition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next.
So, in terms of that, the contractor just completed the first 30.
Okay.
We haven't built up enough data with the new metering in place yet to provide an analysis, but we do our water audit annually. So those numbers will be incorporated into the next water audit that we conduct. So we do anticipate that we will see improvement on the accuracy of the production numbers from those 30 wells. If I remember correctly, Brown and Caldwell did a study on that was the basis for the contract in the next petition, and that study indicated that there was, I want to say, between 10 and 20% over registration of those meters for the production wells.
So they over registration.
They took the existing production wells which have an existing meter, but the whole problem with the meter configuration is that in order for the meter to record accurately, you're supposed to have a certain length upstream and a certain length downstream that is unobstructed. And because of the way the wells were originally drilled and constructed and confined on small pieces of property, everything got pushed together, and so there wasn't adequate space for the meter to register accurately. So the whole subject of the project was to expand the piping system, relocate everything, put in a new meter with the appropriate setbacks, and then that would improve the accuracy. So the initial meters, because of that configuration, were not registering accurately. There was more turbulence in the flow that affected the accuracy of the meter, and so Brown and Caldwell study concluded that there was an over-registration of the numbers, and so they determined that by tracking what was being recorded on the meter as it existed, and then they put another meter downstream with the appropriate distance, just a temporary clamp-on type meter, and compared the two, and on the basis of that comparison, it revealed that there were problems with the numbers that we were getting from those production meters, which was the basis for the design to fix all of that on 60 production meters. And the first phase, the contractors completed, that's about 30 meters. But as I said, it's just finished it, and so we want to build up all that data, and then we expect that it will affirm the original assessment by Brown and Caldwell, and our production numbers will reflect more accurate rates.
So 30 down, this contract is for 15 more. How many more wells are you planning to do?
Well, the
entire system?
The initial assessment identified 60 wells, and so that's our priority.
Oh.
And there are other wells where we may undertake similar improvements, but those are part of wells that are slated to be rehabilitated not just the above ground metering system, but also the well casing and everything below ground as well. So we will, for the remaining wells in our total production system, which are, we have 120 wells, about 90 on average are in service every month. The remaining 30 we will take care of as we move forward with our rehabilitation program.
So, you've done 30, this is for 15, that's 45, and Caldwell as suggested
60.
So are you gonna come back again for the 15 more, or are you gonna go up?
It is likely, ma'am, that we will come back for the 15 more.
Let's get back on topic on 2201. We're kind of jumping ahead here to the next topic.
Sorry, sir.
No, isn't this the contract for the 15?
It's another one. You're
Oh, I
ahead.
apologize.
You're asking questions for the next one.
Oh, sorry.
So no more questions on the next topic.
We can approve both of them now.
Yeah. And the vote?
So, any more questions related to 2201? The Brown and Caldwell.
I just want to make a comment. I want to thank the LJ for removing the 10% because we already have 20%.
Our ALJs always do that.
Good job.
Miguel always asks and we always think.
I mean, you always ask for 10, but we need just 20.
We're very, because we're very generous.
No, ma'am, I am not trying to trick you.
Look at the monkey, look at the monkey.
Oh, you want to change to 10 then?
That's what it is, 10.
What are we approving now?
Where the Caldwell,
The very first.
We're approving the consultant who said to do the other.
That's right,
Okay,
2201.
sorry.
So how many projects is Brown and Caldwell involved with for you?
Currently, in terms of project and construction management, the Route 1 sewer rehabilitation is still active. There's the SSCS project in the south near Santa Rita. There's an ongoing project there, and those are under this contract. They have a different. They have completed for and been awarded different projects. And so the other one that is most significant is they are program manager for the OEA grant funds that we received from DOD, the $173 million grant. So they've been managing the sewer interceptor rehabilitation that is from Anderson Air Force Base to the Northern District plant. That $30 million project finished at $25 million, several months ahead of schedule and $5 million under budget. The Northern District refurbishment or upgrades to secondary is currently ongoing. The original deadline for completion of construction was the end of this calendar year. However, because of the pandemic and the lockdowns that the contractor had on their workforce housing and other issues, the schedule is likely to slip until maybe April of next year, but we are very close to completion and it's going under budget as well. And then the last one, the outfall diffuser was also already constructed. That one was completed ahead of schedule, and then the last one is the Northern Guam Aquifer Monitoring Well System. Half of that project, the rehabilitation of the existing wells, has been completed. We're currently working on, also under budget, and we're currently working on the new wells, 7 new wells that are going in. Drilling started on that just within the last several weeks, and so that one is should be done by the same time the wastewater treatment plants.
Can I get a listing of that?
Sure.
Give me a listing of that and the totals. I'd like to see that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? Move to approve amendment number 3 of the Brown and Caldwell.
Second to Mike's motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Next item, GWA docket 2202, petition to approve change order number 5 with
Discussion's over.
Where was I?
right here. For the groundwater production meter replacement project. We have an ALJ report.
already know that it's on there.
Fred, I believe this is you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I thank GM Bordalia for his explanation on why the water meter replacement project was undertaken because of the Brown and Caldwell study. But, you know, in fact, the PUC's really already approved this entire project, all 60 water wells. In GWA docket 2002, the PUC approved the entire project, which included the replacement of the meters and above-ground discharge piping for all 60 production wells. It authorized GWA to proceed with replacing all 60 meters at water wells, including the 15 which are now before you in change order 5, and additionally 15 more. Those are additive bids 1 and 2. The order approving the Giant construction contract stated, the project involves the replacement of well piping and meters at 60 well sites at various locations. The basic bid includes 30 wells, and 2 additive bids include the other 30 wells. So I'm submitting to you tonight that really the only issue before you is the cost of the 15 additional meters at the water wells. In the original 20-02 docket, the PUC only indicated that the initial basic bid, that's the 30 deep wells out of the 60 were funded. So there was only enough money at the time from GWA to fund all of the 60 wells. The bid of Giant construction in the docket 2002 matter included the basic bid for the 30 wells, an additive bid 1 for the 15 additional wells, and additive bid 2 for 15 more, so that comes up to the total of 60. Additive bid number 1 is included in Giant's original proposal. It's really the same as change order number 5. It's 15 additional wells after the 30 that have already been pretty much completed. The original bid and contract provided that if additional funding was obtained after the contract was executed, GWA could have Giant undertake additive bid 1 for the 15 additional well sites. That was all contemplated in the original bid, the original confirmation of the award by the PUC. This was all recognized that any or all bid items not exercised could be restored via change order. And that's why there's not a need for an additional procurement bid, because it was all contemplated in the original project that 60 wells would have new meters. In GWA docket 2002, the PUC approved the basic bid in the amount of $1,379,405, as well as the authorization for GWA to later fund the remaining 30 wells, including the 15 and additive bid 2. So as I mentioned, the only issue tonight really is the cost of change order 5 or additive bid 2. In the docket, the PUC found that the replacement of all of the meters in the 60 wells was justified, and that was based on the finding of Brown and Caldwell that GM Bordalia has already well covered. The meter readings were found to be inaccurate. They needed replacement, and some of the piping was leading to over measuring of the water. And this really made it difficult for GWA to calculate the non-revenue water, and difficult to track distribution system losses. So it seems to me the PUC has already found this is a good project, it's necessary, and should be completed, and is critical for GWA's water loss control program. There have been a number of developments since the PUC approval of the groundwater production meter replacement project in January of 2022. GWA approved various change orders, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the contract. I think those total around 62,000. I went into detail in my report on what the change orders were. Some of them were extending time on the contract, but the cost overall was around 62,000. So there's an increase now in the total authorized contract to $1,443,409.43. As was also mentioned, Giant Construction has already pretty much finished the 30 water well meter projects. They did, I think, substitute 28 of the original wells were completed. They had to do 2 different wells. There was a couple of problems that came up, but basically Giant has already substantially complied with the existing project. So the amount required now for change order number 5, that's $741,744.65. That's really the amount that's before you tonight. This amount includes the original bid price, and that was when Giant first submitted the bid in 2020. They had bid $687,960. And that was additive bid 1. And again, GWA is already authorized to award additive bid 1 if it has the funds to do so. But as a result of the time lag, the original amount increased by $53,784.65. And according to Giant, that was basically due to increased costs of ductile iron pressure pipe fittings and meters. GWA has looked at this carefully. They found that this additional cost of the $53,000+ was reasonable, considering the initial bid prices were from September 2019. So I think it's commonly the case that prices for goods and services has increased quite a bit during the pandemic. So for the cost, what are we looking at here? If change order number 5 is approved, the total cost for the contract would be as follows. First, we have the original contract cost for the basic bid, which was $1.379 million. Then we have the amount of the additional change orders 1 through 4, at $64+ million. And the proposed change order number 5, $741,744.65. That includes the escalation cost. So to date then, the total approved contract amount would be $2,185,154.08. The sources of funding for this change order are GWA bond funds applicable to the project and some other local funding sources. There's funding from CIP line item meter replacement program, and there could be funds in other applicable CIP projects. My reading of the project is the change order itself is definitely justified, as well as the additional cost amounts. The change orders 1 through 4 appear to be reasonable, justified at $64,000+. And change order number 5, again, I think the cost increase of $53,000 for new costs since that time are also reasonable and justified. GWA also found that the increased price escalation was reasonable because the initial bid prices were from September 2019. As with some of the other matters tonight, we had a little bit of a timing issue because when the petition was first filed with the PUC, we did not yet have a CCU resolution. However, that matter has been resolved the day before yesterday, Tuesday night. The CCU did pass resolution 02-FY2022, and therefore they authorized GWA to seek this petition before the PUC. So the matter is fully and properly before the PUC. as I view this, the PUC has already approved the additive bid 1 change order number 5. The cost has changed slightly, and I think you need to address that, but it was recognized in the earlier docket that there is a compelling need to replace well piping and meters for the well sites at various locations. And without the replacement, GWA would be unable to properly measure groundwater that is produced from the wells. You also know that the PUC in recent rate cases has been extremely concerned with water loss. And the GWA is making efforts, I believe, to reduce water loss, but it's certainly difficult to calculate it unless you have accurate meters that are on the wells. So that's the whole purpose of this program. So in the order that's prepared for your signature, the total amount of the contract is now indicated at $2,185,154.08. And similar to ALJ Alcontra, I did not approve the 10% request for an additional amount because of the 20% that's already in the contract review protocol. But I do believe that in terms of this additive bid 1 or change order number 5, the $741,744 amount would be subject to the 20% contingency. So GWA probably does not need the 10% additive amount. For all of those reasons, I submit you should approve the request in this document.
Thank you, Rick.
Back to you, Doris.
Ditto.
Bill, comments?
I just wanted to thank the ALJ for handling this expedition. This does have still date on the pricing that has been submitted and is in addition. I also like to point out, as Coach raised, that the analytical studies did include a water loss control study. We recognize the seriousness of the non-revenue water issue that we see. We've taken your concerns to heart. We put a lot of effort into coming up with that water loss control analytical study and program and plan that they recommend. This is part of the solution to getting our non-revenue water under control. On the production meter side, there is also the demand meter side, the customer meter side, which also plays a part in accurate calculations of our water loss. And as you know, we've had meter issues on the customer side for longer than I care to reiterate to you, but in July of I can't even remember the year, but in July, I believe we officially finished all of the meter replacements for our defective LP meters that was the subject of another dispute. And so that has all been taken care of. So we're taking these incremental steps. And I know that when the audit comes out, Commissioner Brooks will look at that and probably harangue me again about our high non-revenue water numbers. I will say that in this instance, they will be a little less deserved than in prior years because we are taking these incremental steps. And I wanted to assure the commissioners that we will continue to move forward with that in light of that. If you might recall, the district meter areas that were part of the work that our water loss consultant did for us. We are moving forward with that. We've already incorporated some of those recommendations into existing projects so that we can establish those meters in our distribution system. So establish distinct areas where we get a better handle on what goes in and what comes out, and then focus our leak detection efforts. So that is ongoing, and I also wanted to let you know that we have signed a contract with the water loss consultant to help us implement that over the next few years, and that is one of the recommendations that is called for in the analytical study. So we are fully committed to continuing the progress that we try to make in these leadership steps.
Yeah, the demand meter side of it, on the customer side, has been a long process. We've all worked together on that for quite a while.
So the LPs, the failure rate from our testing was, on the order of 80%. So 80% of those meters that we identified as potentially problematic, when we pulled them and we tested them, 80% failed the readings that we were equipped.
Were they typically low read?
They were low or no read, yeah, typically. And so that was the failure rate for the LPs. The failure rate for the M25s, which is the model that residential model that we also had in the distribution system. When we took the LPs out and put M25s in. Testing on all of those, including after the LP meter replacement started, we pulled a random set of M25s. I believe the failure rate on that was less than 10%. So a vast difference, very obvious, and we think that the M25 meters are more robust and should serve us well into the future. I do.
And on the production meters, this is something we've talked about sometimes in the past too. Yeah, it's still early in the process, but what's your feeling? Do you think we're going to see somewhat of a resolution on the non-revenue water losses with this?
So the intent of our the replacement on both sides, or the importance of the replacement on both sides, is it defines the accuracy of the data that goes into the water line. So in terms of the production numbers, they definitely now will be more accurate. On the demand numbers, they also will be more accurate for the accounts that we have metered. I believe that the real losses, the actual leaks out of the distribution system piping, I don't believe is as high as the non-revenue water line. So if we look at from the financial numbers, what we produce versus what we sell, the water loss numbers have been 52%. I think we got it down to 48%. And then when you look at the metering errors that could be attributable, we estimate that the real losses is reduced to 38%, which was the number from last year's audit. So we will be able now to refine that if we don't have the failing meters, and those numbers will all flatten up. Is that going to put us down to where we want to be? No. We still have a lot of work to do in the distribution system. The district metered area project that we hope to implement over the next 3 years. If you recall the pilot study I talked about previously, once we set up 3 temporary district metered areas, and then we did focus leak detection based on the results of what we saw, and that resulted in an average of 45% reduction in water loss in all 3 of those areas. So we are hoping once we implement this DNA project and get all of the whole island, all the distribution system segmented into this distributed areas and apply the appropriate leak detection teams to cover all of those distributed areas, we will be able to get the numbers down to where they should be on a nationwide average of 3%. So it's going to be a few years more before we get to that point, and we will need to, some capital expenditures to set up the meter areas, and some operational expenditures to field the necessary leak detection teams to go over all of those areas in a focused manner. But can get there. My intention is for us to get there. It's not going to happen overnight. So I have a few more years of haranguing before we get to where we need to be.
So you feel we're at about 48% non-revenue water loss, and maybe gain up to 38% with the new production meters or that. If you include the data.
Yeah. So I mean, production numbers. I'd like to reserve judgment until I get a feel for what we got on the 30 that we
won't hold you to it. We've been through all this stuff for a long time.
But I believe it will lead to gains. The other thing I told Mr. from GSWA aside when we talked about doing the house count, I believe that we have a significant portion of the real losses, or the losses are not leaks to the pipes, but actually remove connections with that. A lot of of the installations in more remote areas, just because of the way things were constructed over the years, there's a lot. You drive down to Erie and you'll see an exposed 2-inch galvanized line that comes along the side of the road. There's a lot of piping like that, and it doesn't take a lot for someone, they wanted to tap into that line and see it. So I feel we have a lot of theft. I can't quantify it. There isn't a standard formula that is anywhere in the industry to quantify that. So it's not something currently that enters into our water loss calculations. But I'd like it to be. I'd like to get a better handle on that. So I've been discussing with my team a physical meter audit. So based on our GIS data, the satellite imagery that we have, for every house, every structure that we see, there should be if there's a power account, there should be a water account. So we started already with a comparison of GPA's database versus our database to identify points that we need to look at. But I have requested a physical meter audit, house by house, to verify water connections if needed. So when GSWA said that's something that they would like to do, I offered to collaborate on that so we could perhaps save them some money. We're already in the process of doing it. And I did feel for him when he said he was assessed the same things like you guys that we're assessed. So I know it should be based on headache, and I believe that I win in that category. I'm probably the largest headache that you guys have, so we should charge more than you said.
All right, that's fair enough. We'll take care of that next year. That's all here. That's easy now. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes. Are you using any USDA grants for this project?
For the meter replacement, no. But no, not for this project. We do have a lot of EPA grant money being spent currently. The Route 1 project is.
And the M25s, now, are all residences now using the M25? Do they live the LPs out right now?
That's correct. Yes.
Are they water resistant?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So give an accurate reading if it's submerged underwater with all this rain?
Yes.
So how much, you stated this figure earlier, $100 and some odd million in federal grants. What was that number again?
Oh, that was the DOD grant, 173 million.
Okay, and what is that to cover?
About 130 million was for the Northern District secondary upgrades.
That's the wastewater.
The wastewater treatment plant. 30 to 35 million, including the design and all that, for the sewer interceptor from Anderson to the Northern District plant. Another 8 to 10 million on the, I know this is going to come out to 5 million, but it's based on the number I'm throwing out, we're not added to 117. But another 8 to 9 million for the outfall diffuser. Outfall diffuser. So the Northern District plant, once it's treated, the effluent goes through an ocean out, deep ocean outfall out to the ocean. At the end of that pipe, we put in a diffuser to try to disperse the flow in a more environmentally responsible manner. And so it helps us with our permit. So that project was about 8 to 9 million, and then we're currently working on about $4 million worth of monitoring well. And then of course there's the program management costs for ground call and all of that on top of that. So right now we are on track to spend most of it. We're trying to get DOD all the projects that finished under budget. We're trying to get them to approve us to put it towards the remaining projects that are still active.
On a separate aside, I noticed that Teresa Rojas is now in the meeting council, or she's
Yes, ma'am.
in addition to, or did she replace her other?
She is replacing our former council. They're currently overlapping just for the transition to cover, make sure we have proper coverage on all the legal matters that we have open right now.
I know her, she used to work for me.
Miguel, just a quick question. Does GWA have the ability to measure pressure going into like per village? And if so,
if the answer is yes, do we monitor it out at all locations? The answer is no. Currently, The meter system that we have is called AMR, Advanced Automated Meter Reading. We are looking to transition to an AMI system, which will use the same meters, but the electronic endpoints that are attached to it have the ability to provide real-time transmissions, and then we can add pressure sensors to that and obtain pressure data from every connection point.
So if that happens, based on the readings, is it possible for it to increase or decrease pressure according to that node?
So that's a different, the increase or decrease in the pressure is to a project to accomplish that is the pressure zone realignment project, which is phase 1 is currently in construction, phase 2 is in design. That establishes pressure valve stations at strategic locations to separate distribution systems into the appropriate pressure areas. So for instance, in Tumon right now, pressures can exceed 90 psi on the main line, which it seemed great, but if your most household plumbing connections, that's too much pressure for that, right? So we have instances of breakage because of that high pressure. It should be lower, and so a pressure control station will be placed. Now that we finished the Nissan tank, there'll be a new pressure valve station that's on the road going down to the western. That will help control the pressures in Tumon, bring it down to the appropriate level. So that project will be back at all of our pressure zones island-wide, and we'll be better able to manage those pressures. And those stations are slated to be tied into our overall SCADA system, so we'll be able to see that information real time. So we have requested ARPA funds to mitigate potential rate increases as part of our rate cases before the ALJ right now. The governor has indicated support for that request. DOA has advised us that the money has been set aside, but GWA has not received any of it yet. My understanding is it is pending resolution of or adjudication of our rate case with you folks. So once that rate case is done, then DOA and DWA are prepared to release the funds. How much is it? Our request was 14.4 million. Our revenue losses.
Indicated preliminary approval for the
Yes, ma'am.
same as
Our proposal is to use it as long as the guidelines allow us to go through. We've not received details on that yet.
So that would mitigate to limited to the rate increase and factor that in.
That's our plan.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, move to approve GWA document 2022.
Second. All seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously, right, Pedro? Or are you against? You're for. You're against. Okay. All right, 6-1. Pedro against.
And I also noticed, I don't have the next two documents in Donovan. Is that on purpose?
Those aren't ready
Okay.
for hearing.
Those aren't done yet.
Okay.
They'll be on next month's.
We're done with GWA then? We're done grilling you tonight, Miguel? Haranguing you, I think is the proper word.
Only the haranguing is only with respect to the non-revenue work. Everything else is fine.
And rightly so. Yeah, because that's been going on for 20 years, 30 years, ever since I came into government.
It's costly.
I'm gonna get used to saying thank you, ma'am, may I have another?
Miguel inherited.
That's right.
No, but ever since, it's been there.
We'll get it fixed.
We're working on it.
I will leave it to
Incrementally. really thought we were gonna turn the corner when we fixed the President Grant side meters, and we didn't see that much of an improvement. I'm hoping the production will,
Hoping the pressure drills don't go up.
thanks, Miguel.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Could I just ask a question about the ALJ regarding for the rate study? That's going to be a lot of 6 days. So I hope you don't give us the week before. I mean, I like to get
Yes, Fred and I were just talking
sooner
about,
rather than later, because even to just read each one, and then by the 7th one, what did I just read? That's going to take a lot of time to absorb.
I think 12 hours would be.
Yeah. So I hope, so my request is, give it to us, I know it's gonna take a while, but give it to us give us sufficient time to really, not the week before, I'll tell you, I'm gonna say no way.
For this one,
So-
those should be.
So Commissioner Brooks, I think at the end of the administrative matters, we will need to discuss the scheduling of 2 meetings, the upcoming November meeting and the rate hearing, which we may want to have a separate
Yes,
meeting.
by itself.
But it's not on the calendar.
Yes.
That's a procedural matter that we need to discuss.
And there are some public hearings coming up too.
Oh, yeah, but we go with those.
Okay, so next item is next generation 911 emergency dispatch system update. This is just strictly informational. Cover this, Fred?
Just briefly, Mr. Stone from the fire department had sent out a request to all the telecom companies to give their plans concerning implementation of the next generation 911 emergency dispatch system. And apparently now, I believe a bidder has been approved. So there's actually going to be the development of this new system. And Mr. Stone was asking the companies to meet with him and collaborate on implementation and other things. But this information was provided to me by Mr. John Gay of PDS. So I thought it was an interesting development since the commission had been very involved.
So they finally purchased the.
Yes.
It's not
Or they have a contract, or, it's not implemented.
Also, they did go on to they awarded it.
Yes. Let's see. I attached a letter, and yeah, it's to plan the implementation of phase 1 and phase 2 of the new system. And let's see. There's been a contract entered into by the fire department for the deployment of the new emergency dispatch system. So just an interesting development for your information.
And the final item is Port Authority of Guam fiscal year 2022 budget.
Yes.
A lot of numbers there, Doris. You want to go through the whole thing?
I didn't go through it.
It's actually the most interesting reading in that report is the general manager's explanation. I thought it was quite good.
I read so many numbers, I didn't want to read anymore.
Yeah.
We don't normally approve anybody when they don't submit, that's why I thought, oh, but it's nice.
Well, it gives you an insight on the operations report.
So
I
it's
think.
worth reading?
I believe so. I thought GM Spacio's letter.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay, all right. I will read it now.
Yeah, that's true. Commissioner.
I guess that information is not complex. I know the how much about this, how much for the it's just like that. It's about $80 million, $90 million more. But the question is, so which customer is gonna come up with that? But anyway, it's a lot. The same one. This one was too good.
Okay, so the port authority is $48 million. What is GPA comparison to GPA? It's about 400. It's over 100 million. 100. That's how it's proposed. It's a lot of stuff.
So Brad, you want to go over the scheduling?
Yes, can I cover this and then the consultation?
Take time, right?
No.
I mean, there are really two issues. The first is November, and I have a personal issue too. I'm going to be off island from November 3rd through the 17th. But, you know, this meeting would be rather short. I mean, we basically only have 3 weeks to prepare everything, and I can't do a lot when I'm off. I won't be able to this time. So I'm asking that we do not hold that on the 25th. I think having an extra week would really help us. We already have about 4 or 5 matters that are going to be on the agenda, including the 2 waterworks, at least 1, and maybe 2 GPA matters. And so I'm going to suggest a special meeting instead of the November meeting, and a December 2nd meeting for November. And then the second problem we have in December is the water rate case. Now, I think I'll defer to Jofet. We probably will need to have a second meeting, a second special meeting in December. You might want to dispense with the regular December meeting. I don't know, but I think we need at least one other special meeting for the GWA rate case. We were discussing that. It does seem better, definitely, to have a separate meeting and only focus on that, because if we tried to include it with other matters, it just so the question is when should the second
For December. So we're not doing the Thanksgiving meeting. We move that to December 2nd.
Yeah, the 25th, that's right, wouldn't work anyway.
Right.
That's
December 2nd. And
I'm going to be gone the last week of December.
then I'll be done on the 6th
of December, Peter.
You're having gone most of December.
The bid department. Do we have to hear it coming back to work? Do we have to hear it in December? The rate case. Do we have to hear it in December, or do we do it in January?
Yeah, wait, that's where I'm gonna have a problem with January.
Okay, so December 30th.
I leave January 27th, which is a Thursday, because I have to be someplace in Atlanta no later than the 29th, so that's why I left it. So if we could move the January meeting to the 26th or the 25th, is enough, because I won't be here.
The January meeting, the
It's on the
27th.
27th, and I leave that morning.
So are we,
So I just want it in your planning.
Right. Are we, what's wrong with December 30th? I won't be. You're not gonna be okay. And then,
When, 27th? Okay.
I'll
When are you leaving?
I'll be gone. 26th.
after Christmas.
Right after Christmas. So it's a little sticky. So we need to schedule 2 meetings in December.
So December 2nd is okay for everybody.
I think so.
And that's.
Actually, we're gonna schedule 3 meetings.
January's no good?
Well, January's okay. I won't be here the first couple of weeks.
Okay.
And I leave like
She
on the
said before the
26th.
27th.
Yeah, so the regular meeting I won't be there.
Or we could have a special meeting.
It's gotta be December, for the water. Yeah, so we need, so that's more important.
Joe, that would the 23rd be too late for the water case? Because one advantage, the 23rd, that could be a regular meeting.
23rd of December.
Yes. Oh, no, it's not.
The 30th was supposed to be scheduled on the 30th. I'm gone. Okay.
When would you, do you have a date you'd like?
How about the 23rd?
How about the 23rd?
How about December 15th?
Or the 23rd, December 23rd.
So the 16th? Oh, Wednesday, not a Thursday.
How about this? Let me throw this out.
21st.
How about we need a regular meeting and we need a special meeting for the regular, right? Right.
It's December 2nd.
Yeah, well, that's really November. The 21st and the 23rd, Tuesday and the Thursday. How does that sound?
He's gonna be,
I'm gonna be at the lot of this. Go to the next week.
Can we not do it on January 10th and the 14th, or January 10th through the 21st?
I'm not back until,
Oh, you're not leaving till the 26th.
yeah, I'm not meeting.
we have to get this water rate case done.
Yeah, what's the date in December that's good
Let's
for
focus on
everybody?
the water rate case first.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get a date where everybody's gonna be here at the same time.
Can we skip the regular December meeting?
I think we can, because we're doing it on the second, we can postpone that in January. So we just gotta focus on the water rate case.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a date for all of us.
When do all of you get back?
Well, our January 27th is meeting our January is on the 27th.
When do you have it on the
Back in there.
26th?
Should we do it like,
What about that? Joe, when do you go to Blau?
no, not my January. December is typical, we're focusing on water, but it has to be done. It has to be
It
done
has
December.
to?
True, right?
If we're gonna agree to implement any sort of rating piece that has to be, it's starting to make it. The further we push it out.
Right. We pushed it out to pay off, so.
So is there a date where how about December 9th, following week?
Got enough time, Joe?
No?
There's a couple of.
Oh, you're gone also. What about the 16th?
That was the 23rd. I thought that was a very.
No, is the 16th?
The 23rd, what about the 23rd again?
Yeah, what's wrong with the 23rd?
Or Joe's?
What about the 16th?
Is there, everybody else gonna be here? The 23rd, I'm going last.
You won't be here?
Yeah, I won't be here. You'll be on the 16th.
16th was, you don't get that.
Is everybody available on the 30th except for me?
How about the 29th?
Are you here on the 30th? You here on the 30th?
Oh, you're here? That's.
All right, as chairman, I'm canceling all travel until further.
Except for the chairman.
Except for the chairman.
And you're definitely not.
From a ratepayer perspective, the longer you push it, the better. Because it seems like December is not a good thing, so why don't we have the first week? When will everybody be back?
The second, third week of January.
Yeah, okay.
The third week of January.
That's okay. Yeah.
So, Peter's elected, that's Joe.
We could save Joe's, the rate case. That's the 23rd.
Then you have deniability.
Yeah.
23rd of what?
December.
We're gonna have a meeting the 23rd.
That'll be the rate case.
Is that okay?
That's something?
All right. All you are here? Mike, you're here? Doris, you're here?
Yes, I don't leave
Pedro's
until
here?
January.
You guys are here? Yep. We have 6. Yeah, all right. So fit?
December
23rd. That's the water rate case.
So
The
when
second is the November.
Second is the November meeting, and then do we need a December regular meeting? No, or I'll tell you what. Push it back to January, and if there's something really that needs to be pushed across the finish line, put it in the water rate case. This week.
During that meeting.
Okay.
But that'll be, and then we just resume back to January 27th. Yeah.
And could you give a consideration for me?
Doris is gonna be off.
Just 1 day earlier? Or 2 days earlier?
Yes.
Can I make a point on that one, Mr. Brooks? You know, we don't like to do special meetings. They cost about $1,000 more. So I know some commissioners can't come to one or the other, but I would really prefer, I don't like special meetings because you have to go through a lot of service issues and other things, so I would.
Well, that's 2 years in a row I missed a January meeting because I'm always off in January. And I wasn't here in January last year.
Right.
And this,
I remember those meetings were really fast.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Hey,
I'm just kidding.
well, the one meeting I want to be here for is the rate case.
Definitely.
Yes, I definitely want to be here for it. So that's December 23rd.
Yeah.
And I will, okay.
Let me have a stuff with you, just.
So just know I won't be here in January.
Everything's sitting on the ship's offshore valley.
So
They'll be ready for next.
when are we gonna get the stuff? Because I don't want to have, I want to say by December 1st, I want to get everything.
Yeah, the whole, all of the 5 inch should be done by the end of November.
Okay. Because I really want to have time to, absorb it. Because, this will be my first major rate increase as a commissioner.
Jill said, can you meet with us on the 22nd and just give us a presentation? Just kidding. Just do a separate meeting to summarize it.
They used to have
A summary.
working meeting.
Yeah.
You could
We do working sessions.
Yeah, a working
And
session.
normally we'll do that like, with GWA, and they can explain
Yes,
the detail
because-
prior to the.
Yes. Oh, it's kind of like a pre-run.
Right, prior to it, so that we
Agreed.
can digest everything.
Yeah. So, can we do that?
Oh, for the
If there's a separate meeting for that, open government law, we have to announce it.
the working session.
That there,
I don't know, well, we're gonna cover all that anyway.
that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But will the consultants be there for the 23rd meeting? Or does it need to be?
But was December 23rd and Christmas, they're not gonna wanna come. No,
Yeah, I know.
I doubt it. Yeah, with December 23rd.
They're coming East Coast.
No, they're not gonna wanna do that.
I think there'll be.
That would save money for everybody.
There'll be plenty of information.
What's the worst case scenario that we don't? Listen to the case.
And the worst, and worst case scenario, we don't approve it.
Can we just press the release?
We have to come back to us again.
I'll keep it friendly. They have, so they're not early, generally always say, try not to compress the rates. I don't think we've ever done.
This is my first time, so.
So, what do we decide?
So, just to recap, December 2nd and December 23rd and you're gonna go ahead on January without. I'm going 2 for 2. I wasn't here last year because I was in Washington DC, and I won't be there.
Yeah, there's always like a particular month that each of us will miss for that.
I'm going 2 for 2.
Yeah,
We're just gonna exclude you from all January from now on.
Right.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Just adjourn the meeting.
Second. All in favor? Let's go home.
Go sign stuff.
I forgot your order.
Well, you remember your orders, I'm gonna run the rest of it.
I don't even know what the difference is.